The rain hit the window of Jack's small apartment. It was a grey Tuesday morning in the city. Jack sat at his kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee. On the table, there was a newspaper. He looked at the jobs section. He circled 3 jobs with a red pen, but he did not feel excited. He was 22 years old, and he wanted an adventure. He did not want to wash dishes in a small cafe in the city forever. Jack looked around his kitchen. The walls were peeling, and the fridge made a loud humming noise. He needed money. He needed a good job. Suddenly, he saw a white envelope on the floor near the front door. He did not hear the postman. He stood up and walked to the door. He picked up the envelope. It was heavy and thick. It felt expensive. On the front, his name was written in beautiful gold ink. Mr. Jack Miller. He turned the envelope over. There was a red wax seal on the back. It looked like something from an old movie. He opened it carefully. Inside, there was a letter on thick, cream-colored paper. Jack read the letter aloud. Dear Mr. Miller, we are pleased to offer you the position of waiter at the Grand Hotel on Raven Island for the summer season. The pay is excellent. Food and a room are included. Please arrive this Friday. A boat will wait for you at the harbor. Jack's eyes went wide. He applied for this job 2 months ago, but he forgot about it. The Grand Hotel was famous. Only very rich people stayed there. Movie stars, politicians, and business owners visited the island for their holidays. He looked at the second piece of paper in the envelope. It was a map. Raven Island was a small black in the middle of a big blue ocean. It was far away from the city. It was far away from everything. The map showed steep cliffs and a dark forest around the hotel. Raven Island. Jack whispered. The name sounded mysterious. He went to his bedroom and pulled his old suitcase from under the bed. He wiped the dust off the top. He opened his closet and looked at his clothes. He needed white shirts and black trousers for the uniform. He packed his best clothes. He also packed a warm coat because the ocean air is often cold at night. He felt a mix of feelings. He was happy because the salary was very good. He could fix his apartment with that money. But he also felt a little nervous. The island was very isolated. If something happened there, he could not easily come back home. Jack looked at the map one more time. The black dot looked lonely in the middle of the sea. He put the map in his pocket and zipped up his suitcase. He was ready. On Friday morning, Jack stood at the harbor. The air smelled of salt and fish. Seagulls flew in circles above the water. Jack held his suitcase tightly. He looked for the boat to Raven Island. He walked past many expensive white yachts. They were clean and shiny. But at the end of the dock, he saw a different boat. It was small and painted a dark grey color. The paint was peeling in some places. The name of the boat was written on the side. The Black Bird. A man stood on the deck of the boat. He was old, with a thick white beard and a blue cap. He wore a heavy yellow raincoat, even though it was not raining yet. Are you Jack Miller? The man asked. His voice was deep and rough like the sea. Yes, that is me. Jack answered. Get on. The man said, I am Captain Hook. We are late. Jack stepped onto the boat. The wood floor was wet and slippery. He put his suitcase in a corner and sat on a hard wooden bench. The engine started with a low vibration that shook the whole boat. Slowly, they moved away from the harbor. Jack watched the city become smaller and smaller. The tall buildings looked like toys. Soon, he could only see the grey line of the coast. Then, there was only the ocean. The water was not blue today. It was a dark, steel grey. The waves were high. The boat went up and down, up and down. Jack held the rail of the bench. He felt a little sick. The wind blew cold air into his face. He pulled his coat closer to his body. "Is the ride always this rough?" Jack asked the captain. Captain Hook did not look at him. He looked straight ahead at the horizon. "This is nothing," he said. "The sea around Raven Island is angry. It does not like visitors." Jack did not know what to say. He looked at the sky. Thick, dark clouds were moving together. They looked like a heavy blanket over the sea. After 2 hours, Jack saw something in the distance. It was a large, black rock rising out of the water. "There it is," the captain said, pointing a finger. "Raven Island." Jack stood up to see better. The island looked wild. There were no beaches, only steep, sharp cliffs. At the top of the highest cliff, Jack saw a building. It was huge. It had tall towers and many windows. It looked like a castle from a storybook, but it also looked lonely. The boat moved closer to a small wooden dock at the bottom of the cliffs. The waves crashed against the rocks. White foam sprayed into the air. "Welcome to your new home," the captain said. He sounded serious. Jack looked up at the big hotel on the cliff. He felt a shiver run down his back. It was not just the cold wind. He felt that he was very far away from safety. Jack stepped onto the wet wooden dock. He turned around to wave at Captain Hook, but the boat was already moving away. The engine made a loud noise as the boat disappeared into the grey mist. Jack was alone at the bottom of the cliff. He looked up. A long, steep stone staircase was cut into the rock. It went all the way up to the hotel. There was no elevator and no car. Jack took a deep breath. He picked up his heavy suitcase and started to climb. The wind blew hard against his face. The stairs were slippery from the ocean spray. Jack counted the steps to keep his mind busy. 50, 100, 200. His legs began to hurt, and his breathing became fast. He stopped for a moment to rest. He looked down at the sea. It crashed angrily against the rocks below. It was a long way down. Finally, after 20 minutes, Jack reached the top. He stood in front of the Grand Hotel. Close up, the building looked even bigger. It was built from dark grey stone. Ivy grew on the walls, covering some of the windows. The roof had sharp points and tall chimneys. It looked very old and very strong. It did not look like a holiday hotel. It looked like a fortress. Jack walked across the gravel path to the main entrance. The doors were made of heavy, dark wood. They were twice as tall as him. He pushed one door open. It was very heavy. He stepped inside and stopped. The contrast was amazing. Outside, it was cold, grey, and windy. Inside, it was warm, golden, and silent. The lobby was magnificent. A thick red carpet covered the floor. Above his head, a giant crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling. It sparkled with electric light. On the walls, there were large paintings of serious-looking people in old-fashioned clothes. In the center of the room, there was a large fireplace. A fire burned brightly, making the room feel cozy. There were comfortable leather armchairs arranged near the fire. Jack put his suitcase down. The sound was very loud in the quiet room. He felt small and dirty in his old coat. His shoes were wet from the boat ride. He looked around for a reception desk. "Hello," he called out. His voice echoed in the big hall. "Is anybody here?" For a moment, there was no answer. The hotel was perfectly still. Then, he heard the click-clack of shoes on the marble floor. Someone was coming from a door behind the reception desk. Jack straightened his coat and tried to look professional. He was ready to start his new life. A tall man walked out from the office behind the desk. He wore a perfect black suit and a black tie. His hair was grey and combed back neatly. He looked at Jack with cold, blue eyes. He did not smile. "Mr. Miller, I assume," the man said. His voice was smooth but sharp. "Yes, sir." Jack said, "I am Jack Miller. I am Mr. Stone, the hotel manager." The man said. He looked at his watch. "You are 10 minutes late. Punctuality is very important here. Do not be late again." "I am sorry," Jack said. "The stairs." Mr. Stone held up a hand. "No excuses. Follow me." Jack picked up his suitcase and followed Mr. Stone through a door at the back of the lobby. They walked down a long, white corridor. It was very different from the lobby. There were no carpets and no paintings here. It was clean and plain. Mr. Stone opened a double door. "This is the kitchen," he said. The kitchen was large and full of steam. It smelled of onions, garlic, and roasting meat. A big man in a white apron was chopping vegetables very fast. He had a red face and a big mustache. "Marco," Mr. Stone said loudly. "This is the new waiter." The big man stopped chopping. He wiped his hands on his apron and smiled. "Hello," he shouted. "I am Chef Marco. Welcome to the madness." He laughed loudly. Jack liked him immediately. Marco looked friendly and warm. "And this," Mr. Stone said, pointing to a corner, "is Sarah." A young woman stood near the sink. She was polishing wine glasses with a white cloth. She was pale and very thin. She had dark hair tied in a tight bun. She looked at Jack for 1 second, nodded her head, and looked down again. She did not speak. She looked shy or maybe afraid. "Sarah is the head maid," Mr. Stone explained. "She cleans the rooms and helps in the kitchen." Mr. Stone turned to Jack. "Your room is downstairs. Put your suitcase there and put on your uniform. The guests arrive in 2 hours. You have much work to do." Mr. Stone handed Jack a key. Jack took it. "One more thing," Mr. Stone said, his voice dropping lower. "What happens in the hotel stays in the hotel. Our guests are very private people. Do not speak to them unless they speak to you first. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mr. Stone," Jack said. "Good. Now go." Jack walked towards the stairs to the basement rooms. He looked back at the kitchen. Marco was chopping carrots again. Sarah was looking at the window. Outside, the sky was getting darker. The wind was picking up. Jack felt a strange tension in the room. It was a beautiful hotel, but nobody looked truly happy. Jack stood in the lobby near the big wooden doors. He wore his new uniform. The white shirt was stiff and a little uncomfortable, and the black shoes were tight. He stood very straight, with his hands behind his back. Mr. Stone stood in the center of the room. He checked his watch every 30 seconds. "They are arriving," he said quietly. Outside, the wind howled around the stone walls. The sky was now completely black, even though it was only afternoon. The first drops of rain hit the glass windows. Suddenly, the heavy doors opened. A gust of cold, wet air blew into the warm lobby. Jack shivered. A man walked in first. He was short and carried a leather briefcase. He wore a gray suit that looked expensive but was slightly wet from the rain. This was Mr. Cruz. He looked annoyed. He brushed water off his shoulder and did not look at Jack. Then, a woman entered. The lobby seemed to become brighter when she walked in. She was an older woman with silver hair styled perfectly high on her head. She wore a long, dark blue velvet dress and a heavy white coat. "Mrs. Green," Mr. Stone said, bowing his head low. "Welcome to the Grand Hotel." Mrs. Green did not answer immediately. She took off her white coat and handed it to Jack without looking at him. Jack took the heavy coat. Underneath, she wore a necklace that took Jack's breath away. It was magnificent. It was made of white gold and covered in diamonds. In the center, there was a large, tear-shaped diamond that sparkled under the chandelier lights. It looked like a piece of ice or a star. It was beautiful, but it also looked heavy. Jack saw Sarah standing by the stairs. Her eyes were fixed on the necklace. She looked amazed. Even Mr. Stone stared at the diamonds for a moment before he spoke again. "I trust your journey was comfortable?" Mr. Stone asked. Mrs. Green touched the necklace with her gloved hand. "It was terrible," she said sharply. Her voice was loud and commanding. "The boat was too small, and the water was too rough. My shoes are ruined. I apologize, madam," Mr. Stone said smoothly. "The weather is unexpected, but inside, it is warm and safe." "I hope so," Mrs. Green said. She looked around the lobby with a critical eye. "I am tired. I want tea in my room immediately. And tell your staff to be careful with my luggage. It is Louis Vuitton." "Of course," Mr. Stone said. He snapped his fingers at Jack. "Jack, take the bags. Sarah, prepare the tea." As Mrs. Green walked up the grand staircase, the diamonds on her neck caught the light. Everyone watched her go. Jack felt a strange feeling in his stomach. That necklace was worth more money than he could earn in 100 lifetimes. And on this dark, lonely island, it seemed to shine too brightly. After Jack took Mrs. Green's heavy bags to her room, he went back downstairs to the kitchen. He was tired, but the work was just beginning. Chef Marco was shouting orders. "Jack, we need the fresh fish delivery. Go to the service door. Old Elias is there." Jack nodded and ran to the back of the hotel. He opened the heavy metal service door. The wind pulled the door from his hand and slammed it against the wall. Outside, the rain was falling hard now. It was almost horizontal because the wind was so strong. An old man stood there in a yellow raincoat, similar to Captain Hook's. He held a wooden crate filled with ice and fish. This was old Elias, the local fisherman. "Here," Elias said, shoving the crate into Jack's arms. "Take it quickly. I must go." "Thank you," Jack said. He looked at the sea behind Elias. The waves were huge. They were crashing over the dock where Jack arrived earlier. "Is it safe to go back? The water looks dangerous." Elias looked at Jack. His face was wrinkled like an old map, and his eyes were gray and serious. He did not move to leave immediately. He leaned closer to Jack. "Listen to me, boy," Elias said. His voice was low, competing with the sound of the wind. "This is not a normal storm. We call this a Black Gale. It happens once every 10 years. Jack held the cold crate of fish. "It's just rain and wind, isn't it?" Elias shook his head slowly. "No. When the Black Gale comes, the island is cut off from the world. No boats can come. No boats can leave. The phones will die. You are trapped here until the sky clears." He looked up at the tall, dark tower of the hotel. "Be careful," Elias whispered. "People get crazy in this hotel during the storms. Strange things happen. Lock the doors and keep your eyes open." Before Jack could ask what he meant, Elias turned around. He ran down the slippery stairs to his small boat. The engine roared to life. Jack watched him navigate the boat into the dark, angry waves. Within seconds, the boat disappeared behind a wall of water. Jack shivered. He pulled the crate of fish inside and locked the heavy metal door. He turned the key twice. The kitchen was warm and bright, but Jack felt cold inside. He carried the fish to Marco. "Did Elias talk to you?" Marco asked, not looking up from his pot of soup. "Yes," Jack said. "He said to be careful." Marco laughed. "Elias loves to tell scary stories to the new staff. Don't worry, Jack. It is just a storm. We are safe inside." Jack nodded, but he looked at the small window near the ceiling. The sky was pitch black. He hoped Marco was right. The kitchen was now a very busy place. The air was hot and thick with steam. It smelled of rich tomato soup, fresh bread, and roasting chicken. The only sounds were the clatter of metal pans and the roaring wind outside. "Jack! The silver!" Marco shouted. He did not look up. He was stirring a large pot of red soup with a long wooden spoon. Jack ran to the side table. There was a box of silver spoons, forks, and knives. He took a soft white cloth and started to polish them. They had to be perfect. Mr. Stone said that Mrs. Green would notice even a small spot of dust. Jack rubbed the silver until he could see his own face in the reflection. Sarah was there too. She was arranging flowers on small trays. Her hands were shaking a little. She dropped a white rose on the floor. "Careful," Mr. Stone said. He walked into the kitchen suddenly. He looked very stressed. There was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. "Mrs. Green expects perfection. She is a very important guest. If she is happy, she will tell her rich friends. If she is unhappy, the hotel is finished." Mr. Stone walked over to Marco. "Is the lobster bisque ready?" "Yes, yes," Marco said, waving his hand. "It is perfect. Go away, let me cook." Mr. Stone turned to Jack. "And the wine? Did you bring the vintage red wine from the cellar?" "Yes, sir," Jack said. "It is on the serving cart." "Good." Mr. Stone looked at the ceiling. The electric lights flickered for 1 second. They went dim, then bright again. Everyone stopped. The kitchen was silent. "It is just the wind," Marco said, but he did not sound sure. "The power lines on the mainland are old. We have a generator in the basement," Mr. Stone said quickly. "But let's hope we do not need it. Hurry up. Dinner is in 10 minutes. Jack finished the silver and started to help Marco with the plates. The food looked amazing. There were small toasts with salmon, the red lobster soup, and a main dish of roast duck with orange sauce. It was food for kings and queens. But Jack could not stop thinking about the storm. Through the thick stone walls, he could hear the wind. It sounded like a wild animal trying to get inside. The windows rattled in their frames. The rain hit the glass like bullets. Sarah picked up a heavy silver tray. "I am scared," she whispered to Jack. "I don't like this storm." "It will be okay," Jack said, trying to be brave. "We are inside. The hotel is strong." "Ready," Marco shouted. "Service. Let's go." Jack picked up a tray of appetizers. He took a deep breath. He pushed open the swinging doors and walked out of the hot, noisy kitchen into the cool, quiet dining room. The show was about to begin. The dining room was the most beautiful room in the Grand Hotel. It had a high ceiling painted with clouds and angels. One entire wall was made of glass. During the day, it offered a wonderful view of the ocean. But tonight, the glass wall looked like a black mirror. Jack walked carefully across the floor. He carried the tray of appetizers. There were only 4 people at the long wooden table. Mrs. Green sat at the head of the table. She looked like a queen. The diamond necklace shone brightly against her dark blue dress. To her right sat Mr. Cruz. He did not look hungry. He tapped his fingers nervously on the white tablecloth. He kept looking at the windows. "Here is the starter," Jack said softly. He placed a small plate in front of Mrs. Green. "Thank you," she said without looking at him. She picked up her silver fork. Suddenly, a bright white light filled the room. It was lightning. It struck the ocean just outside the hotel. A second later, a massive sound shook the floor. Mrs. Green dropped her fork. It made a loud clink on the china plate. Mr. Cruz jumped in his chair. "Good heavens!" Mrs. Green cried. She put her hand over her heart. That was very close. Mr. Stone stepped forward from the shadows. "Do not worry, madam. The hotel has lightning rods on the roof. We are perfectly safe." But the storm did not stop. The wind hit the large glass windows with terrible force. The glass bent slightly inward. It made a low, vibrating sound. The rain was not falling down anymore. It was hitting the glass sideways, like stones thrown by a giant. "I don't like those windows," Mr. Cruz said. His voice was shaking. "They look weak. They are reinforced glass," Mr. Stone said, forcing a smile. "Please, enjoy the food. Chef Marco made this specially for you." Jack poured water into the crystal glasses. His hand was steady, but his heart was beating fast. He looked at the reflection in the dark window. He could see the guests, the candles, and the flash of the diamond necklace. Outside, there was only chaos. Another flash of lightning lit up the sky. For a second, Jack saw the ocean. The waves were mountainous. They were smashing against the cliffs, sending white spray almost as high as the windows. "It is a monster," Jack thought. The storm felt alive. It felt angry. The lights in the chandelier above the table flickered again. They buzzed, and went dim. Then they came back on. "The generator," Mr. Stone whispered to himself. He looked at Jack. "Serve the soup. Quickly." Jack ran back to the kitchen doors. As he pushed them open, he heard the wind scream louder, like a warning. The storm was just beginning. Jack carried the heavy silver tray with 4 bowls of soup. The smell of lobster and cream filled the air. He walked slowly to the table. He placed a bowl in front of Mrs. Green, then Mr. Cruz. "Lobster bisque," Jack said quietly. Mrs. Green picked up her spoon. She did not say thank you. She looked at the diamond necklace in the reflection of her spoon. She smiled. She loved her diamonds more than the food. "This soup is acceptable," Mrs. Green said after one taste. She looked at Mr. Cruz. "You look pale. Mr. Cruz, are you afraid of a little rain?" Mr. Cruz finished his glass of wine in one drink. His hand shook as he put the glass down. "It is not the rain," he said. "It is the isolation. We are trapped here." "Trapped?" Mrs. Green laughed. It was a cold, hard sound. "We are safe. Look at us. We have fine food, good wine, and—" She touched the large stone at her throat. "Beautiful things." Mr. Cruz looked at the necklace. His eyes stayed on the diamond for a long time. "That is a very dangerous thing to wear," he said softly. "It is worth millions. Someone might want to take it." Mrs. Green stopped eating. She looked angry. "Let them try," she said. "This is the polar star. It has been in my family for 50 years. I never take it off. I sleep with it. I bathe with it. It is part of me." Jack poured more wine into Mr. Cruz's glass. He saw Mr. Stone standing in the shadows near the kitchen door. Mr. Stone was watching the table. He was watching the necklace too. Sarah came to the table with a basket of bread. Outside, a flash of lightning turned the sky purple. Immediately, a deep, rolling sound of thunder shook the floor. The plates rattled on the table. Sarah gasped. She dropped the breadbasket. Rolls rolled across the floor. "Clumsy girl." Mrs. Green snapped. "Look at what you did." "I am sorry, madam. I am sorry," Sarah cried. She knelt down to pick up the bread. Her face was white with fear. "Leave it," Mr. Stone said, walking forward quickly. "Jack, help her." Jack knelt down to help Sarah. "It's okay," he whispered. "I feel something bad." Sarah whispered back. "The air feels heavy." Jack stood up. The storm outside was now a constant roar. The wind pushed against the glass wall with incredible pressure. The large crystal chandelier above the table began to swing slightly. Left, right. Left, right. The crystals tinkled like small bells. Mrs. Green looked up at the light. For the first time, she looked worried. "Manager," she said. "The lights. They are buzzing." "It is just the generator adjusting to the load," Mr. Stone said. But he wiped sweat from his forehead. Suddenly, the buzzing sound became loud. The lights flared very bright, almost blindingly white, and then, they started to fade. The bright white light did not last. With a low humming sound, the bulbs in the giant chandelier faded to orange, then red, and then nothing. The room plunged into total, absolute darkness. It was not just dark, it was pitch black. Jack blinked his eyes, but it made no difference. He could not see the table, the guests, or his own hands. The heavy curtains covered the windows, so no light came from outside. The only light was the occasional flash of lightning that leaked through the edges of the curtains, creating ghost-like shadows on the walls for a split second. For a moment, there was silence in the room. Then, the sound of the storm rushed in to fill the empty space. The wind roared like a train. The rain hammered against the roof. The old hotel creaked and groaned under the pressure. "Manager!" Mrs. Green's voice cut through the dark. She sounded angry and frightened. "Turn on the lights. This is unacceptable. Please, stay calm," Mr. Stone's voice said from somewhere near the door. "It is the generator. It needs a moment to restart. Everybody stay in your seats. Do not move. It is dangerous to walk in the dark." Jack stood perfectly still holding the silver tray. He felt his heart pounding in his chest. Being in the dark in this big, old room felt wrong. He felt vulnerable. He heard the sound of a chair scraping against the wooden floor. Someone was standing up. "Who is moving?" Mr. Cruz asked. His voice was high and panicked. Stone said to sit down. "I am sitting," Mrs. Green snapped. "Is that you, waiter?" "I am here, madam," Jack said. "I did not move." "Then who moved the chair?" Mr. Cruz asked. Another flash of lightning illuminated the room for half a second. In that blue-white flash, Jack saw a shape. Someone was standing near Mrs. Green. It was a dark shadow, not a clear person. Was it Sarah? Was it Mr. Stone? Or was it someone else? Then the darkness returned instantly. "Sarah!" Jack called out softly. "Is that you?" There was no answer. Only the sound of heavy breathing and the relentless wind outside. "I don't like this," Sarah whispered from the other side of the room. She was far away from the table. So, who was standing near Mrs. Green? Jack felt a cold sweat on his neck. The air in the room felt different. It felt charged with electricity and danger. Something was happening in the dark, right in front of them. But they were blind. "Manager, do something," Mrs. Green shouted. I cannot see anything. I am going to find the candles. Mr. Stone said. Jack, stay where you are. Jack waited. The seconds felt like hours. He strained his ears to hear over the storm. He heard soft footsteps on the carpet. Fast and light. They were moving away from the table. Then, silence again. The darkness was heavy. It felt like a thick blanket over Jack's face. He stood completely still, afraid to move. If he walked, he might hit the table or a guest. He waited for Mr. Stone to return with the candles. The storm outside was louder than before. The wind whistled through the cracks in the old stone walls. It sounded like a ghost crying. Inside the dining room, the air was cold. Is anyone there? Mrs. Green whispered. Her voice was not commanding now. It was small and trembling. I am here. Mr. Cruz answered from the other side of the table. I'm sitting on my hands. I do not want to move. Jack heard a soft sound. It was very close to the table. It sounded like fabric rustling, or a sleeve brushing against a jacket. Who is that? Mrs. Green asked sharply. Is that you, manager? There was no answer, only the sound of the rain. Then, it happened. Mrs. Green screamed. It was a terrible, high-pitched sound that cut through the noise of the storm. It was a scream of pure terror. Get away! She shouted into the blackness. Get off me! Mr. Cruz yelled in panic. Help! Help! Jack reacted instantly. He forgot about the darkness. He dropped his silver tray. It hit the wooden floor with a loud crash of metal. He ran forward with his hands out. Madam! Jack shouted. He took 3 steps and his knee hit a heavy wooden chair. Pain shot up his leg. He stumbled and fell to his knees. The room was chaotic. He heard another chair fall over. He heard rapid footsteps running away from the table, towards the kitchen door. Sarah, turn on a light. Anything. Jack yelled. I can't see. Sarah cried from the corner. Suddenly, a small spark appeared near the entrance of the room. A tiny yellow flame flickered to life. Mr. Stone stood there, holding a silver cigarette lighter. The small flame cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. Mr. Stone walked quickly toward the table, shielding the flame with his hand to protect it from the drafts. What is the meaning of this noise? Mr. Stone demanded. His face looked pale in the dim light. The scene at the table was shocking. Mr. Cruz was hiding under the table. He looked like a frightened child. His hands covered his head. Sarah was standing by the wall, pressing her hands against her mouth. And Mrs. Green was standing up. She was breathing very fast. Her chest moved up and down rapidly. Her face was white, and her lipstick looked like a blood-red wound. Her expensive hair was messy. She stared at Mr. Stone with wild eyes. Her hands were clutching her throat. Someone was here. She gasped. Someone was right next to me. I felt their cold hands on my skin. Mr. Stone moved quickly. He held the small flame of his lighter to the tall white candles in the center of the table. One by one, the wicks caught fire. A soft, yellow glow spread across the table. It was not a strong light, but it was enough to see. The dining room looked different in the candlelight. The corners of the room remained in deep shadow. The ceiling, with its painted clouds and angels, was now invisible in the darkness above. The shadows of the guests looked long and distorted on the walls. They moved when the candle flames flickered in the draught. Is everyone all right? Mr. Stone asked. He put the lighter back in his pocket. His face was serious. The candlelight made deep hollows under his eyes. Mr. Cruz crawled out from under the table. He stood up and brushed dust off his gray suit. His face was red with embarrassment. He tried to look brave, but his hands were still shaking. I dropped my napkin. Mr. Cruz lied. I was looking for it. Nobody believed him, but nobody said anything. Mrs. Green sat down heavily in her chair. She looked very weak. She poured herself a glass of water with trembling hands. She drank it quickly. Her other hand was still pressed tightly against her throat, covering her neck. That was terrifying. She whispered, "I felt a hand. I know I did. It was cold and rough. Perhaps it was just the tablecloth." "Madam," Mr. Stone suggested softly, "or maybe Mr. Cruz bumped into you in the dark." "I did not," Mr. Cruz protested. I was on the floor." Jack stood near the kitchen door. He looked around the room. The only door out was the main double door to the lobby, and the swinging door to the kitchen behind him. "Jack," Mr. Stone said, "go to the kitchen. Get more candles. We need more light. Then check the fuse box in the basement. The generator should be working." "Yes, sir," Jack said. He looked at Mrs. Green one more time. She looked smaller now. The arrogant, powerful woman from earlier was gone. Now she looked like a frightened old lady. She kept her hand on her neck, as if she was protecting herself. Sarah stepped forward from the shadows. "Can I get you anything, madam?" "Some brandy." Mrs. Green shook her head. "No. I just want the lights back on. This hotel is a nightmare." Jack pushed the kitchen door open. The kitchen was dark too, lit only by the grey light coming from the high windows. The storm flashed outside, lighting up the pots and pans for a second. Jack grabbed a box of thick candles from the shelf. He felt a strange tension in his stomach. He did not like leaving the guests alone in the dining room. He hurried back. He felt that something was wrong. Something was missing. Jack walked back into the dining room with a handful of thick white candles. He placed them on the side tables and the mantelpiece. He lit them one by one. The room became brighter. The golden light filled the corners, chasing away the scary shadows. Now, everyone could see each other clearly. Mrs. Green was still sitting in her chair. She looked very tired. Her hand was still wrapped tightly around her throat. It was a strange gesture, like she was holding herself together. "Are you feeling better, madam?" Mr. Stone asked gently. He stood near her, looking concerned. "I am fine," Mrs. Green said. Her voice was weak. "I just want to go to my room. I want to sleep." "Of course," Mr. Stone said. "Sarah will help you." Mrs. Green took a deep breath. Slowly, she lowered her hand from her neck. She smoothed the collar of her dark blue dress. Jack looked at her. He blinked. He looked again. He felt his stomach drop. Something was wrong. Mrs. Green's neck was bare. The magnificent diamond necklace, the polar star, was not there. There was only smooth, pale skin. Jack pointed a shaking finger. "Madam," he whispered, "your necklace." Mrs. Green looked at Jack, confused. Then she looked down at her chest. She touched her neck again. Her fingers moved frantically over her skin. She touched her dress. She touched her collarbones. She found nothing. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out for a second. Then, she stood up so fast that her chair fell backward with a loud crash. "It's gone!" she screamed. "It's gone! My diamonds!" Mr. Cruz jumped up. "What?" He looked at her neck. "Impossible! It was there a moment ago. I saw it. It is gone!" Mrs. Green shouted. She looked around the room wildly. She looked at Mr. Cruz, then at Sarah, then at Jack, and finally at Mr. Stone. Her face twisted with rage. "One of you took it. You stole it in the dark." "Madam, please," Mr. Stone said, raising his hands. "Calm down. Maybe it fell on the floor. It has a safety clasp." Mrs. Green yelled. "It never falls off." Someone unclasped it. Someone with cold hands. Everyone looked at the floor. Jack grabbed a candle and knelt down. He looked under the table. He looked under the chairs. He saw dust. He saw the dropped napkin. But he did not see the sparkle of diamonds. "It is not here," Jack said. He stood up. The room went silent. The storm outside seemed to get louder. The wind banged against the glass. The reality of the situation hit them. They were on an island, cut off by a storm, in a dark room. And now, a necklace worth millions of dollars was missing. Mrs. Green pointed a finger at Mr. Stone. "Nobody leaves this room," she ordered. "Search everyone. I want my diamonds back now." Mr. Stone's face was hard as stone. He looked at Mrs. Green, then at the rest of the group. He nodded slowly. "You are right, madam," Mr. Stone said. His voice was calm but serious. "This is a crime scene now. We must secure the room." Mr. Stone reached into his pocket and pulled out a large ring of keys. The metal keys jangled together. He walked to the main double doors that led to the lobby. He inserted a long brass key into the lock. He turned it twice. The lock made a loud, heavy sound as the bolts slid into place. Then, he walked to the kitchen door. He locked that too. "Now," Mr. Stone said, turning back to face them. "We are locked in. Nobody leaves this dining room until we find the necklace." Mr. Cruz stood up angrily. His face was red. "You cannot do this," he shouted. "I am a guest. You cannot keep me prisoner here. This is illegal." "It is necessary," Mr. Stone replied. "The necklace is in this room. The thief is in this room. If I open the door, the thief might run away and hide the necklace in the hotel. We cannot let that happen." "But I did not take it," Mr. Cruz yelled. "Search the staff." The waiter was close to her. Or the maid. Sarah began to cry quietly in the corner. "I didn't take it," she sobbed. "I was far away." Jack felt his face get hot. "I was helping Sarah," Jack said firmly. "I did not touch Mrs. Green." Mrs. Green looked at everyone with cold, suspicious eyes. "I don't care who took it," she hissed. "I just want it back. It is worth $5 million. Do you hear me? $5 million. The number hung in the air. $5 million. It was a fortune. It was enough money to change a life forever. Jack looked at the faces in the candlelight. Mr. Cruz looked desperate. Sarah looked terrified. Mr. Stone looked calculating. Even Mrs. Green looked different. Without her diamonds, she looked older and more vulnerable. "We need to call the police," Jack said. "We cannot handle this alone." Mr. Stone sighed. He looked at the window where the rain was smashing against the glass. "You are right, Jack. But I am afraid it will not be easy." "Why?" Mr. Cruz asked. "The storm," Mr. Stone said. "The phone lines on the island are old. In a storm like this." He did not finish the sentence. He walked over to a small table in the corner where an antique telephone sat. He picked up the receiver and held it to his ear. He listened for a moment. His expression did not change. "Well?" Mrs. Green demanded. "Call them." Mr. Stone slowly put the phone back down. He looked at them with grim eyes. "There is no sound," Mr. Stone said calmly. "The line is dead." "Try again," Mrs. Green shouted. She walked over and grabbed the phone from him. She pressed the receiver to her ear. She listened, hoping to hear a dial tone. But there was only silence. She threw the phone back onto the table. "Useless. I told you," Mr. Stone said. "The telephone cables run under the sea to the mainland. In a storm like this, they often break." "My mobile phone," Mr. Cruz said suddenly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slim, expensive smartphone. He tapped the screen frantically. The light from the phone screen illuminated his sweaty face. He walked to the window. He held the phone up high. "Come on, come on," he muttered. Jack watched him. He knew the answer already. Raven Island was too far from the coast. Even on a sunny day, the signal was very weak. In a storm, it was impossible. "Nothing," Mr. Cruz said, his shoulders dropping. "No service. Searching for network." He stared at the screen in disbelief. "We cannot call the police. We cannot call anyone." The room felt smaller. The stone walls seemed to move closer. The storm outside was not just weather anymore. It was a prison wall. "So, we are alone," Jack said quietly. "Just us. And the thief," Mrs. Green added. Her eyes darted around the room. She looked at Mr. Cruz, then Sarah, then Jack. "One of you has my necklace. And now you know the police are not coming. You think you are safe." She stood up straighter. "But you are wrong. I will not let you leave with my property." Mr. Stone stepped into the center of the room. The candlelight cast a long shadow behind him. He looked like a judge. "We have to deal with this ourselves," Mr. Stone said. "Since we cannot leave and nobody can come in, the necklace must be in this room. It is simple logic." "What do you propose?" Mr. Cruz asked. He put his phone away. "A search," Mr. Stone said. "A complete search. We will check every corner of this room. And—" he paused, looking at each person. "We will check every person." "You want to search us?" Mr. Cruz looked offended. "I am a guest. I am a businessman. And I am the manager responsible for this hotel," Mr. Stone said firmly. "If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear. If you refuse, it looks very suspicious." Mr. Cruz looked at Mrs. Green. She nodded. "Search them," she said. "Search everyone. Start with the staff." Sarah let out a small sob. Jack stepped closer to her. "It's okay," he whispered. "We didn't take it. Let them look." Mr. Stone turned to Jack. "Jack, come here. Empty your pockets on the table." Jack walked to the table. He felt everyone's eyes on him. The candlelight flickered, making the shadows jump on the walls. He put his hand into his right trouser pocket. He pulled out the key to his room. He placed it on the white tablecloth. Then, he put his hand in his left pocket. He pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper, an old receipt, and a single coin. "That is all," Jack said. He turned his pockets inside out to show the white lining. They were empty. Mr. Stone looked at the items on the table. He nodded. "Good. Thank you, Jack. Now you," Mrs. Green said, pointing at Sarah. Sarah stepped forward slowly. She was still crying softly. She wore a black dress with a white apron. The apron had 2 large pockets in the front. Sarah put her trembling hands inside. She pulled out a small notebook and a pen. She used these to write down guest orders. Nothing else? Mr. Stone asked. No, sir. Sarah whispered. She shook her apron. Nothing fell out. Now the guests. Mr. Stone said. He turned to Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz's face turned red. He stood up and buttoned his grey suit jacket. This is ridiculous. He spat. I am a wealthy man. Why would I steal a necklace? I can buy 10 necklaces. Then show us. Mrs. Green said. Her voice was ice cold. If you have nothing to hide, empty your pockets. Mr. Cruz glared at her. Aggressively, he reached into his jacket. He threw a leather wallet onto the table. Then a silver cigar case. Then his expensive smartphone. Finally, a set of car keys from Mercedes. Are you happy now? Mr. Cruz asked. Mr. Stone did not answer. He looked at the items. He picked up the cigar case and opened it. It was empty except for 3 cigars. He checked the wallet. It was full of cash and credit cards, but no diamonds. And you, manager? Mr. Cruz asked. What is in your pockets? Mr. Stone calmly placed his items on the table. The master ring of keys, his lighter, and a clean white handkerchief. Jack looked at the pile of objects on the table. Keys, phones, wallets, coins. But no polar star. It is not on us. Jack said. Maybe it fell and slid somewhere. Under a carpet. Or into a vase. Mr. Stone looked around the large, shadowy room. Jack is right. We must search the room itself. Jack, help me. We will turn this room upside down. I will watch. Mrs. Green said. She sat back in her chair. She looked like a hawk watching mice. Let's start with the floor. Mr. Stone commanded. Check under the table first. Jack got down on his hands and knees again. The floor was hard and cold. He crawled under the long table. It was dark there. He wished he had a flashlight. He felt the wooden floorboards with his fingers. He felt dust, crumbs of bread, and the leg of the table. He moved all the way to the other end. He came out the other side and stood up. He shook his head. Nothing under the table. Check the chairs. Mr. Stone said. Lift the cushions. They worked for 20 minutes. They lifted the heavy velvet cushions of every chair. They looked behind the curtains. They even looked inside the large flower pots in the corners of the room. Jack's hands got dirty with soil. The room was a mess now. Chairs were overturned. Cushions were on the floor. But the necklace was gone. It had vanished completely. The dining room was a mess. Cushions lay on the floor. Napkins were scattered everywhere, and the beautiful flower arrangements were ruined. But the diamond necklace was nowhere to be found. Mr. Stone stood in the center of the chaos. He wiped his forehead with his white handkerchief. He looked tired. This makes no sense. Mr. Stone said quietly. We searched the room. We searched our pockets. We searched the floor. The necklace is not here. It must be here. Mrs. Green shouted. She was sitting in her chair again, holding a glass of water. Her hand shook so much that the water spilled a little on the table. Diamonds do not have wings. They do not fly away. I agree, madam. Mr. Stone said. But facts are facts. We cannot find it. Jack looked around the room. He felt a headache coming. The air was hot and stuffy because the ventilation was off. The smell of the extinguished candles mixed with the smell of the storm outside. Maybe we missed a spot. Jack suggested. Maybe it is stuck under a floorboard. Mr. Stone shook his head. The floor is solid wood. There are no cracks big enough for a necklace. Mr. Cruz laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. Maybe a ghost took it. He said. Or maybe Mrs. Green never wore it. Maybe she imagined it. Mrs. Green turned slowly to look at him. Her eyes were dangerous. Are you calling me a liar, Mr. Cruz? No. No. Mr. Cruz said quickly, raising his hands. I'm just saying. It is impossible. The doors are locked. The windows are sealed glass. We are in a box. If it is not on us, and not in the room, then where is it? That was the question. Jack thought about it. The thief had only a few seconds in the dark. The lights went out. Mrs. Green screamed, and then Mr. Stone lit the lighter. In that short time, someone took the necklace and did what? Did someone swallow it? Jack asked. Everyone looked at Jack with shock. Don't be stupid. Mrs. Green said. The pendant is the size of a walnut. It is too big to swallow. Then it is hidden. Mr. Stone said. And the person who hid it is waiting for us to unlock the doors. They will come back later to retrieve it. He looked at the group with sharp eyes. We need to review exactly what happened when the lights went out. We need to know where everyone was standing. Mr. Stone pointed a finger at Mr. Cruz. You, sir. You were the closest to Mrs. Green. You sat on her right side. Mr. Cruz's face turned pale. I told you. He stammered. I was under the table. I was afraid of the lightning. Under the table. Mr. Stone repeated slowly. That is a very convenient place to hide something, isn't it? Mr. Stone walked slowly around Mr. Cruz. He moved like a cat circling a mouse. The candlelight made Mr. Stone's shadow tall and scary on the wall. Let us look at the facts. Mr. Stone said. His voice was smooth but hard. You sat next to Mrs. Green. When the lights went out, you moved. We heard your chair move. Then, you were under the table. Mr. Cruz wiped his face with a silk handkerchief. He was sweating a lot. I told you. I was afraid of the thunder. It was a natural reaction. Or, Mr. Stone said, stopping in front of him. Was it an opportunity? You slid under the table. You were near Mrs. Green's legs. Maybe you reached up. Maybe you pulled the necklace off and hid it somewhere. That is a lie. Mr. Cruz shouted. His voice cracked. I am a respectable man. I own a large company in the city. I do not need to steal jewelry from old ladies. Rich men always want more money. Mrs. Green said from her chair. She looked at Mr. Cruz with disgust. And I heard rumors. Mr. Cruz. People say your business is having trouble. People say you have debts. Mr. Cruz's eyes went wide. He looked shocked. Who told you that? That is not true. It is true. Mrs. Green said. My friends in the city talk. They say you are desperate. Mr. Stone looked at Mr. Cruz with new interest. Is this true, sir? Do you need money? No. Mr. Cruz yelled. But he looked guilty. He pulled at his collar. This is nonsense. I did not take the necklace. Look at my hands. They are shaking. How could I unclasp a delicate necklace in the dark if my hands are shaking? Jack watched Mr. Cruz carefully. It was a good point. Mr. Cruz was a very nervous man. To take a necklace in total darkness without Mrs. Green feeling it required steady, calm hands. It required a professional. He is right. Jack said suddenly. Everyone looked at Jack. What do you mean, boy? Mrs. Green asked. Mr. Cruz is too loud. Jack explained. When the lights went out, he was making noise. He was panicking. But the thief was silent. We heard a soft swish of fabric. We heard soft steps. Mr. Cruz does not move softly. Mr. Stone thought for a moment. He looked at Mr. Cruz, who was breathing heavily and looking like he might faint. Perhaps. Mr. Stone said. But if it was not Mr. Cruz, who was it? Who was standing behind Mrs. Green? Slowly, Mr. Stone turned his head. He looked at the corner of the room. Sarah stood there. She was trying to be invisible in the shadows. Sarah. Mr. Stone said quietly, "Come here." Sarah stepped forward into the circle of candlelight. She looked very small and frightened. Her black uniform was slightly too big for her, and her face was wet with tears. She twisted her hands together in front of her apron. "I did not do it," Sarah whispered. Her voice was so quiet that Jack almost could not hear her. Mr. Stone stood in front of her. He was tall and intimidating. "Sarah, we need the truth. Where were you when the lights went out?" Sarah looked down at her shoes. I was standing behind Madam's chair. I was waiting to pour more water." "Behind my chair," Mrs. Green said sharply. She leaned forward. "So you were the closest person to me. You were right behind my neck." "Yes, madam. But I did not touch you," Sarah cried. "I was holding the water jug. When the lights went out, I was scared. I dropped the jug on the carpet and ran to the wall." Mr. Stone looked at the floor behind Mrs. Green's chair. The carpet was indeed wet. A crystal water jug lay on its side near the wall. "The jug is there," Mr. Stone admitted. "But that does not prove you are innocent. You are a maid. You are trained to be quiet. You walk softly. You work with your hands. And you are poor." Mrs. Green added cruelly, "I know how much maids earn. It is nothing. A necklace like mine could solve all your problems, couldn't it?" Sarah began to sob. Her shoulders shook. "Please. I am honest. I send all my money to my sick mother. I would never steal. If I steal, I go to prison, and my mother dies." Jack felt a pain in his chest. He believed her. Sarah looked like a terrified rabbit, not a criminal mastermind. She is telling the truth, Jack said. He stepped between Mr. Stone and Sarah. "Look at her. She is shaking. To steal the necklace, you need calm nerves. You need to be quick and precise. Sarah is too scared. Fear makes people do desperate things," Mr. Stone said coldly. He looked at Sarah's apron pockets again. Maybe she did not keep it. Maybe she hid it in the room. "Sarah, did you hide it in the flower pot? Or under the carpet?" "No. No." Sarah shook her head violently. Mr. Cruz spoke up from the table. He looked relieved that the attention was not on him anymore. She was the only one behind the chair. He said, "It has to be her. It is the only explanation." "We will see," Mr. Stone said. "Sarah, you will stay in your room until the police arrive. I cannot trust you." "But the door is locked," Jack reminded him. "We are all trapped here together." Mr. Stone frowned. He looked at the locked doors. Then, he looked at the dark windows. The storm was still raging. But Jack noticed something. He walked over to the large glass wall. He shielded his eyes from the candle reflection and looked out. "Mr. Stone," Jack said, "look." "What is it?" "The window," Jack said, pointing to a small side window near the corner of the room. It was not a large glass panel. It was a small ventilation window. It is unlatched. Mr. Stone ran to the corner of the room. He pushed Jack aside gently and looked at the small window. It was a narrow window, used only for letting in fresh air. The metal latch was undone. The window was open just a tiny bit, maybe 2 centimeters. A cold draft came through the crack. Rainwater dripped onto the wooden floor, making a small puddle. "You are right," Mr. Stone said. He sounded surprised. "It is unlatched." "But who opened it?" Mr. Cruz asked. He stayed near the table, away from the cold air. "We were all at the table when the lights went out. Someone moved very fast," Jack said. He looked at the window. "The thief took the necklace, ran to this window, and threw it outside." "Threw it outside?" Mrs. Green screamed. She ran to the window. She pushed her face against the glass. "You threw my $5 million necklace into the mud. Into the storm." She looked ready to faint. "It will be lost forever." "No, madam," Mr. Stone said calmly. He closed the window and locked it tight. "It is a smart plan. If the necklace is in this room, we will find it. If it is in our pockets, we will find it. But if it is outside in the garden, we will not find it tonight. The thief plans to come back later, when the storm stops, and pick it up." Mrs. Green turned to face the group. Her face was red with anger. "Who did this? Who threw my treasure into the dirt?" She looked at Sarah. Sarah shook her head, tears flying from her eyes. She looked at Mr. Cruz. He looked offended. "We cannot just leave it there," Mrs. Green said. "The wind might blow it away. The rain might wash it into the sea. You must go get it." Mr. Stone looked out the window. It was pitch black outside. The rain was falling in heavy sheets. The wind was bending the trees. "It is dangerous out there, madam," Mr. Stone said. "The cliffs are slippery." "I don't care," Mrs. Green shouted. "I pay you a lot of money to stay at this hotel. Go and find my necklace." Mr. Stone sighed. He looked at his polished shoes and his clean suit. He did not want to go out in the storm. He turned his head slowly and looked at Jack. Jack knew what was coming. He was the youngest. He was the waiter. "Jack," Mr. Stone said. "You have a flashlight in the kitchen." "Yes." "Yes, sir," Jack said. He felt a knot in his stomach. "And you have a raincoat?" "Yes." "Good," Mr. Stone said. "Go outside. Search the ground under this window. If the necklace is there, bring it back immediately." Jack looked at the dark window. The storm looked terrifying. But he nodded. "Okay. I will go. Be careful," Sarah whispered. "Don't fall." Jack went to the kitchen to prepare. He found a heavy yellow raincoat hanging on a hook near the back door. It belonged to the gardener, so it was a little too big for Jack. But he did not care. He needed to stay dry. He put on a pair of rubber boots and grabbed a large, heavy flashlight from the shelf. "Good luck," Marco said. He looked worried. "Do not go near the cliffs. The wind can blow you over the edge." "I will be careful," Jack promised. Mr. Stone unlocked the service door. "You have 10 minutes," he said. "Then I will lock this door again. Do not be late." Jack nodded and stepped out. Immediately, the storm attacked him. The wind was much stronger than before. It hit Jack's chest like a physical punch. He almost fell backward. He had to lean forward and push against the wind to walk. The rain was freezing cold. It felt like small stones hitting his face. Mr. Stone closed the door behind him with a loud thud. Jack heard the lock click. He was alone outside. It was completely black. Jack turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the falling rain, but he could only see 2 or 3 meters ahead. The rest of the world was a wall of darkness. He could hear the ocean roaring below the cliffs. It sounded very close and very angry. Jack walked slowly along the stone wall of the hotel. Ideally, he wanted to run, but the ground was soft and slippery. His boots sank into the mud with every step. Squelch, squelch. He counted the windows as he passed them. Kitchen, hallway, pantry. Finally, the dining room. He stopped. He looked up. High above him, he saw the small ventilation window. It was closed now, but he could see the faint yellow light of the candles inside. This was the right spot. If the thief threw the necklace out of that window, it must be somewhere on the ground here. Jack pointed his flashlight at the ground. It was a mess of mud, wet grass, and broken branches. He got down on his knees. The cold mud soaked through his trousers instantly, but he ignored it. "Come on," he whispered. "Shine. Sparkle. Show me where you are." He moved the light back and forth slowly. He looked for the glint of diamonds. He saw a shiny object and his heart jumped. He grabbed it. It was just a piece of broken glass from an old bottle. He threw it away. He crawled forward. The rain ran down his nose and into his eyes. He wiped his face with a muddy hand. He searched for 5 minutes. He found a bottle cap. He found a stone. But he did not find the necklace. Then, he saw something else. It was not a diamond. It was a mark in the mud. Jack moved the light closer. His eyes went wide. Jack leaned closer to the wet ground. The rain was washing the mud, but the marks were still clear. They were deep and heavy. They were footprints. He stared at them in the circle of yellow light. They were not his footprints. Jack had just arrived at this spot. These marks were pointing away from the hotel wall. Someone stood here, right under the small window, and then walked away towards the garden. Someone was here. Jack whispered. The wind took his voice away instantly. He analyzed the situation quickly. The window was too small for a person to climb through. So, the person inside the dining room, the thief, opened the latch and dropped the necklace. But they did not drop it into the mud. They dropped it into the hands of a partner waiting outside. Or, perhaps the person outside picked it up from the ground. Jack looked at the size of the prints. They were large and wide. They looked like heavy work boots. They were definitely not Mrs. Green's high heels, and they were too big for Sarah's shoes. "Where do you go?" Jack asked the muddy trail. He stood up and shined his flashlight forward. The footprints made a path through the wet grass. They led away from the hotel, past the ruined flower beds, and towards the edge of the property. Jack looked at his watch. He had 7 minutes left before Mr. Stone locked the service door. If he was late, he would be locked out in the storm all night. That would be dangerous. The temperature was dropping, and the wind was fierce. But he could not stop now. The necklace was close. He felt it. Jack made a decision. He started to follow the footprints. He walked with his head down to shield his face from the rain. He followed the track past the stone fountain, which was overflowing with water. He walked past the old apple trees that bent in the wind. The footprints led him to the far corner of the garden. There, half hidden by overgrown bushes, stood a small wooden building. It was the old garden shed. The hotel kept lawnmowers and tools there. It was a dark, ugly little building made of rotting wood. The footprints stopped right in front of the shed door. The mud around the entrance was very disturbed, as if someone stood there for a moment. Jack stopped. He stood 5 meters away from the shed. His heart pounded against his ribs. Was someone inside? Was the mysterious partner hiding in the dark, holding the $5 million necklace? Jack turned off his flashlight. He stood in total darkness for a moment. He wanted to see if there was any light coming from inside the shed. He watched the cracks in the wood. Nothing. It was completely dark. He turned his flashlight back on. He took a deep breath and walked to the door. Jack stood in front of the wooden door. The shed looked like a dark monster in the rain. The wind shook the loose wooden boards, making them rattle against the frame. Jack's heart beat fast. He held the flashlight in his left hand like a weapon. He did not know who, or what, was inside. "Hello," he called out. The wind took his voice and threw it away. There was no answer. He looked at the footprints in the mud one more time. They stopped right here. They did not turn around. Whoever walked here was either inside the shed, or they vanished into the air. Jack reached out his hand. His fingers touched the cold, rusty iron handle of the door. He took a deep breath. He prepared himself to fight. He turned the handle. It did not turn. He used two hands. He pulled hard. He put his shoulder against the wet wood and pushed. The door groaned, but it did not open. It was solid. Jack shone his flashlight on the door frame. There was a large, heavy padlock holding the door shut. It was an old lock, but it looked very strong. Locked. Jack whispered. He stepped back and looked at the shed. If the door was locked, how did the person get in? Jack had an idea. Maybe there was a window. He walked around the side of the shed. The grass here was very tall, reaching up to his knees. It soaked his trousers completely. He found a small, dirty window on the side wall. It was covered in dust and spiderwebs. Jack wiped the glass with his sleeve. He pressed his face against the cold pane and shone his flashlight inside. The beam of light cut through the dusty air inside the shed. Jack saw a lawnmower. He saw rakes and shovels leaning against the wall. He saw stacks of old flower pots. Shadows danced in the corners as he moved the light. But he did not see a person. The shed looked empty. Jack was confused. He walked back to the front door. He looked at the padlock again. It was definitely locked. Then, a thought hit him. It was a simple thought, but it was important. If the footprints led to this door, and the door was locked, the person must have a key. Guests did not have keys to the garden shed. Mr. Cruz did not have a key. Mrs. Green did not have a key. Only the staff had keys. The gardener, the manager, maybe the chef. It is an inside job. Jack thought. The thief is one of us. He looked at his watch. He gasped. 9 minutes had passed. He had only 60 seconds to get back to the service door before Mr. Stone locked him out. Jack turned around and ran. He ran through the mud, slipping and sliding. He ran past the fountain and the apple trees. He saw the light of the hotel in the distance. He ran as fast as he could, praying that Mr. Stone was patient. Jack ran the last few meters to the service door. His chest hurt from breathing the cold air. He pounded his fist on the heavy metal door. "Open! It's me!" he shouted. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. The lock did not move. Jack looked over his shoulder. The darkness of the garden seemed to move. He felt like the eyes of the thief were watching him from the bushes. Then, the lock clicked. The door opened. Mr. Stone stood there. He looked angry. "You are 12 seconds late," he said, looking at his watch. Jack stumbled inside. He fell onto the dry floor. He was shivering uncontrollably. Water dripped from his yellow raincoat and formed a large puddle on the tiles. I found something," Jack gasped. Mr. Stone's expression changed from anger to interest. He helped Jack stand up. What did you find? The necklace. No. Jack said. He took a deep breath. Footprints. They walked quickly back to the dining room. Mrs. Green and Mr. Cruz were waiting impatiently. When they saw Jack's empty hands, Mrs. Green's face fell. You don't have it, she said flatly. You are useless. Wait, madam, Jack said. He wiped water from his face. I found footprints under the window. They lead directly to the old garden shed. The shed? Mr. Cruz asked. Who goes there? The footprints stopped at the door. Jack explained. But the door was locked. There was a heavy padlock on it. I could not open it. The room went silent. Everyone understood the meaning of this. If the door is locked, Mr. Stone said slowly, and the footprints go there, then the person either has a key, or they are a magician. Who has a key? Mrs. Green demanded. Does he have a key? She pointed at Mr. Cruz. No. Mr. Stone said. Guests do not have keys to the maintenance buildings. Only the staff have keys. He looked at Sarah. Sarah shook her head. I don't have the shed key. I only have the linen cupboard key. I have a master key on my ring, Mr. Stone said, touching his pocket. And there is one spare key. It hangs on the hook in the kitchen office. So the thief is inside the shed? Mrs. Green asked. Her eyes were bright with excitement. My necklace is in that shed. It is possible, Mr. Stone said. But the shed has no other exit. If they are inside, they are trapped. Go back, Mrs. Green ordered. Go back and open that door. Drag them out. Jack looked at the dark window. He did not want to go back out into the storm. He was freezing. I cannot open it, Jack said. I need a key. Mr. Stone hesitated. He did not want to give his master keys to Jack. Go back to the shed, Mr. Stone commanded. Listen at the door. Check if anyone is moving inside. If you hear a noise, come back and tell us. Then we will all go together. But Jack started. Go, Mr. Stone said. We are wasting time. Jack sighed. He turned around and walked back toward the kitchen door. He pulled his wet hood up over his head. He had to go back into the dark. Jack stepped back into the storm. The second time was worse than the first. His clothes were already wet, and the cold air bit his skin like teeth. He shivered violently. He wanted to be back in his small apartment in the city, drinking hot coffee. He did not want to be a detective on a dark island. He followed the muddy path again. The footprints he saw earlier were filling with water. Soon, the rain would wash them away completely. Jack knew he had to hurry. He reached the garden shed. It stood silently in the dark corner of the garden. The trees around it moved in the wind, their branches scratching against the wooden roof. It sounded like fingernails. Jack turned off his flashlight. He did not want the person inside to see the light. He stood in the pitch-black darkness. He moved closer to the door. The smell of wet wood and old oil was strong. He pressed his ear against the rough wood of the door. He closed his eyes and focused. At first, he heard only the wind. It whistled through the cracks. He waited. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Then, he heard it. Thump. It was a dull, heavy sound. It came from inside the shed. It sounded like a heavy box falling on a wooden floor. Jack stopped breathing. He pressed his ear harder against the door. Scrape, scrape. Someone was dragging something across the floor. It was definitely a person. A rat or a bird could not make that heavy noise. Then, a voice. It was a low, angry whisper. Jack could not hear the words clearly, but he heard the tone. It was a human voice. Darn it! The voice hissed. Jack's heart stopped. He knew that voice. Or did he? It was muffled by the storm and the wood. It sounded deep. Was it a man? Was it Mr. Cruz? No. Mr. Cruz was in the dining room. Was it Marco? Jack stepped back slowly. His foot stepped on a dry twig. The sound was small, but in the quiet moment between wind gusts, it was loud. The noise inside the shed stopped instantly. The scratching stopped. The whispering stopped. The person inside was listening too. Jack froze. He felt like a deer in front of a hunter. Suddenly, the doorknob of the shed turned. The person inside was trying to open the door. They were trying to come out. But the padlock on the outside held the door shut. Bang! A fist hit the door from the inside. Who is there? A voice shouted. Jack did not answer. He did not wait. Panic took over his body. He turned around and ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. He slipped in the mud, almost fell, but kept running. He needed to tell Mr. Stone. The thief was not just a footprint. The thief was real, and he was trapped in the shed. Jack burst through the service door and collapsed on the kitchen floor. He was gasping for air. His chest moved up and down rapidly. Water pooled around him on the tiles. Mr. Stone ran into the kitchen, followed by Mrs. Green and Mr. Cruz. They looked at Jack with wide eyes. What happened? Mr. Stone demanded. Did you see them? I heard them. Jack stuttered. He stood up, shaking from the cold and fear. There is someone inside the shed. I heard a voice. And they hit the door. They tried to get out. Mrs. Green clapped her hands together. I knew it. The thief is trapped. We have them. But the door is padlocked. Jack said. They are locked inside. We need to open it to get them out. Mr. Stone nodded. His face was serious. Okay. We will go there together. All of us. We will confront this thief. I'm not going out in the rain. Mr. Cruz complained. You must. Mr. Stone said firmly. I'm not leaving anyone alone in this hotel. We stick together. Mr. Stone patted his pockets. He frowned. I have the master ring, but the old padlock on the shed is difficult. It sometimes jams. We should take the spare key. It is newer. He pointed to a small door at the back of the kitchen. Jack, run to the office. The keyboard is on the wall. The key has a green tag. Bring it quickly. Jack nodded and ran. He went into the small, messy office where Mr. Stone did his paperwork. The room smelled of old paper and dust. Jack shone his flashlight on the wall. There was a wooden board with many rows of brass hooks. Each hook had a label. Pantry, wine cellar, laundry, guest rooms. Jack looked for the label garden shed. He found the label. He looked at the hook. It was empty. Jack froze. He moved the light closer. He checked the floor. Maybe the key fell. He looked under the desk. He looked in the waste paper basket. There was no key with a green tag. Jack felt a cold chill that was not from the rain. If the spare key was missing, it meant someone took it. And they took it before the lights went out. Jack! Mr. Stone shouted from the kitchen. Hurry up! Jack ran back to the group. His face was pale. Mr. Stone. Jack said. The key is not there. What? Mr. Stone looked shocked. Impossible. It is always there. The hook is empty, Jack said. Mrs. Green looked at the group. Her eyes were suspicious. So, she said slowly, the thief took the key earlier. They unlocked the shed, hid inside, and then waited. But why is the padlock locked from the outside now? Maybe they have a partner, Jack suggested. One person inside, one person outside to lock the door. We are wasting time, Mr. Stone shouted. He pulled his master keys out. I will use these. Let's go. Grab weapons. We are going to catch a thief. The group stood in the kitchen for one moment. They prepared themselves. Mr. Stone took a heavy metal flashlight. Marco grabbed a large rolling pin. Jack held the frying pan tightly. Even Mrs. Green picked up a heavy silver candlestick. Let's go, Mr. Stone said. He unlocked the service door. The wind blew in immediately, extinguishing the candles in the kitchen. They stepped out into the black, wet night. They walked in a line. Mr. Stone was first, then Jack, then the women, and Marco and Mr. Cruz were at the back. The rain was heavy. It soaked their clothes in seconds. Mrs. Green complained loudly about her shoes. But nobody stopped. They reached the garden shed. It stood dark and silent under the trees. The wind moved the branches above the roof. Mr. Stone signaled for everyone to be quiet. He pointed his flashlight at the padlock. It was still locked. Are you sure you heard a voice? Mr. Stone whispered to Jack. I am sure. Jack whispered back. And I heard a thump. Mr. Stone nodded. He selected a small, rusty key from his master ring. His hands were wet and cold. He struggled to put the key into the lock. Finally, it slid in. He turned it. Click. The lock opened. Mr. Stone pulled the padlock off and threw it on the grass. He grabbed the handle. Ready? He asked. Everyone raised their weapons. Jack lifted his frying pan. Mr. Stone threw the door open. Come out, he shouted. He shone his powerful light into the shed. Jack shone his light too. Marco shone his light. The small shed was suddenly very bright. Jack expected to see a man. He expected to see a fight. But there was nobody. The shed was empty. The light revealed the lawnmower, the rakes, the old pots, and the bags of soil. But there was no thief. There was no person. He is gone. Jack gasped. He stepped inside. He looked behind the lawnmower. But I heard him. He hit the door. You are hallucinating, Mr. Cruz said from the doorway. He sounded relieved. There is nobody here. It was just the wind. No, Mr. Stone said. He walked to the center of the dusty floor. He pointed his light at the ground. Look. In the middle of the dry, dusty floor, there was a puddle of water, and next to the puddle, there was a pile of black fabric. Mr. Stone bent down. He picked it up with 2 fingers. It was a long, black raincoat. It was soaking wet. Someone was here, Mr. Stone said grimly. And they were here recently. This coat is dripping wet. But how did they leave? Mrs. Green asked. She stood at the door, refusing to enter the dirty shed. The door was locked from the outside. Jack looked at the wooden walls. They were solid. There was no other door. He looked at the small, dirty window. It was closed and covered in cobwebs. If someone opened it, the webs would be broken. It is impossible, Jack said. It is a locked room mystery inside a locked room mystery. Mr. Stone searched the pockets of the wet coat. Wait, he said. There is something in the pocket. Mr. Stone pulled his hand out of the wet pocket of the black raincoat. He held his fist closed for a moment. Everyone leaned closer to see. The flashlights created a bright circle of light around his hand. Slowly, Mr. Stone opened his fingers. In the center of his palm lay a small, round object. It shone in the light. It was a gold button. A button? Mrs. Green asked. She sounded disappointed. I thought it would be the diamond. Look closer, Mr. Stone said. He held the button up to his eye level. Jack looked. The button was made of brass or gold metal. It had a picture stamped on it. It was a picture of a bird, a raven. This was the logo of the Grand Hotel. This is a button from a staff uniform, Mr. Stone said. His voice was cold. He turned slowly to look at Jack. He moved his flashlight so the beam hit Jack's chest. Jack blinked in the bright light. He put his hand up to cover his eyes. Jack, Mr. Stone said, look at your jacket. Jack looked down. He was wearing the black waiter's jacket provided by the hotel. It had a row of gold buttons down the front. They were exactly the same as the button in Mr. Stone's hand. Check your buttons, Mr. Stone ordered. Jack's hands were shaking. He touched the buttons on his chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted them all. He checked the buttons on his sleeves. They are all here, Jack said. He felt a wave of relief. I have not lost a button. Look. Mr. Stone stepped closer. He inspected Jack's uniform carefully. He pulled at the buttons to make sure they were tight. He is telling the truth, Mr. Stone said. His uniform is perfect. Then whose button is it? Mr. Cruz asked. Who else wears that uniform? Only the waiters wear this specific jacket, Mr. Stone explained. The chef wears white. The maids wear black dresses with plastic buttons. Only the waiters and the front desk staff wear these gold raven buttons. But Jack is the only waiter, Mrs. Green said. She looked confused. Is there another waiter hiding on the island? No, Mr. Stone said. But we keep spare uniforms. We keep them in the laundry room in the basement. So, Jack said, thinking fast. Someone went to the laundry room. They stole a waiter's uniform. They put it on. Then they put on this raincoat. Why? Marco asked. He was still holding his rolling pin. To disguise themselves, Jack said. If you see a figure in the dark wearing a staff uniform, you do not think it is a thief. You think it is just a worker. Mr. Stone nodded. That is a smart theory. But it means the thief knows where the laundry room is. And they know where the spare uniforms are kept. We are back to the beginning, Mrs. Green groaned. It is someone who knows the hotel. We must go back inside, Mr. Stone said. We need to check the laundry room. We need to see if a uniform is missing. They left the shed. Mr. Stone locked the door again with his master key. They walked back through the storm. The wind was so strong now that they had to hold onto each other to stay standing. Jack felt very uneasy. The button was a clue, but it was also a threat. It pointed to him, or someone trying to look like him. The group walked back into the hotel kitchen. They were dripping wet and shivering from the cold. The warmth of the kitchen felt good, but the mood was very tense. To the basement, Mr. Stone commanded. We must check the laundry room immediately. They walked down a narrow concrete staircase. The air here was cooler and smelled of damp stone. At the bottom of the stairs was the laundry room. It was a large room filled with washing machines, dryers, and tall shelves of white towels and sheets. The air smelled strongly of lemon soap. Mr. Stone walked to a metal rail where the staff uniforms hung. There were plastic covers over the clean clothes. "I keep an inventory," Mr. Stone said. He pulled a clipboard from the wall. "We should have 5 spare waiter jackets here. 3 large, 2 medium." He counted the black jackets hanging on the rail. 1, 2, 3, 4. He stopped. He counted again. "One is missing," Mr. Stone announced. He turned to face the group. "A medium-sized waiter jacket is gone." "Aha!" Mr. Cruz shouted. He pointed a finger at Jack. "I told you. It is an inside job. But I am wearing my jacket," Jack said, holding out his arms. "And my buttons are all here." "It does not matter," Mr. Cruz said. "You gave the key to a friend. Or maybe you hid the spare jacket earlier. You want to confuse us." "I did not," Jack protested. "I arrived on the island 2 days ago. I don't know anyone here." Mrs. Green looked at Sarah. "What about you, girl? Did you take the jacket?" Sarah shook her head. "I am too small for a waiter's jacket. It would not fit me." "It doesn't need to fit you," Mrs. Green said. "You could wear it to look like a waiter in the dark. To look like him." She looked at Jack. Jack understood suddenly. The thief was smart. They wore the waiter's uniform so that if anyone saw them in the shadows, they would think it was Jack. The thief wanted the police to blame Jack. This was planned. Jack said softly, "The thief stole the jacket before the dinner. They stole the shed key before the dinner. They planned everything." "Who has access to this room?" Mr. Cruz asked. "The door is usually unlocked during the day," Mr. Stone admitted. "The maids come here for towels. The chef comes for aprons. Even guests could come down here if they wanted to explore. So it could be anyone," Jack said. Mr. Stone looked at the empty hanger. "Yes. But the button in the shed proves one thing. The thief was wearing this jacket. And now, that jacket, and the necklace, are somewhere in this hotel. Or maybe," Marco said from the doorway, "they put the jacket back." Mr. Stone checked the 4 remaining jackets quickly. He felt the fabric. "These are dry," he said. "The thief still has the wet jacket. We need to find a wet black jacket with a missing button. We cannot stay in the basement," Mr. Stone said. "It is cold, and we are all wet. Let's go back to the lobby. The fire is still burning there." The group walked up the stairs slowly. They were tired. The adrenaline from the hunt was gone, and now they just felt exhausted and frustrated. The necklace was still missing, the thief was still free, and the storm was still raging outside. When they entered the lobby, the warmth of the fire hit them. It felt good. Mrs. Green walked straight to the fireplace. She stood very close to the flames, shivering. Steam rose from her wet clothes. "This is unacceptable," she muttered. "I am freezing. I am tired. And I want my property back." Mr. Cruz sat down heavily in one of the leather armchairs. He took off his wet shoes and rubbed his feet. "My shoes are ruined," he complained. "Italian leather." Jack stood near the reception desk. He did not sit down. He remembered the button and the missing jacket. The thief was someone in this room. He looked at each person carefully. He looked at Marco. The big chef was drying his hands on a towel. He looked calm, maybe a little bored. He did not look like a master criminal. He looked at Sarah. She sat on a small stool, hugging her knees. She looked terrified. Her eyes were red from crying. Jack felt she was too scared to be the thief. He looked at Mr. Cruz. The businessman was angry and loud. He cared about his own comfort. Would he go out in a storm and hide in a dirty shed? It seemed unlikely. Then, Jack looked at Mr. Stone. The manager stood by the window, looking out at the darkness. He was perfectly still. His face was unreadable. He was the only one who did not complain about the cold. He was the only one who stayed calm the whole time. Mr. Stone. Jack asked. What do we do now? Mr. Stone turned around. We wait. He said. We wait for the morning. We wait for the phone lines to work. We wait for the police. And the thief? Mrs. Green asked. They are free to hide the necklace better. There is nowhere to go. Mr. Stone said smoothly. The doors are locked. I have the only key. He patted his pocket where the master ring was. I need to check some paperwork in my office. Mr. Stone said suddenly. I need to file an incident report for the insurance company. You all stay here. Jack, bring some brandy for the guests. Mr. Stone walked quickly toward his office behind the reception desk. He closed the door firmly. Jack watched him go. Something felt wrong. Mr. Stone was in a hurry. Why was paperwork important right now? The necklace was missing now. Jack felt a suspicion grow in his mind. Mr. Stone had the keys. Mr. Stone knew the hotel best. Mr. Stone knew about the shed. Jack decided to watch him. Jack went to the small bar in the corner of the lobby. He poured brandy into crystal glasses. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. He gave a glass to Mrs. Green and one to Mr. Cruz. They drank the strong alcohol quickly, grateful for the warmth. Thank you, boy, Mrs. Green said. She closed her eyes and leaned back in her chair. I just want this night to end. It will end soon, Jack said softly. The guests were distracted. Marco was in the kitchen making hot soup. Sarah was sitting by the fire, staring at the flames. No one was watching Jack. He looked at the office door. It was closed, but a thin line of yellow light came from under it. Jack walked quietly across the thick red carpet. His footsteps made no sound. He felt like a spy. He reached the door. He did not knock. He pressed his ear against the wood. He heard a scraping sound. It sounded like metal on leather. Jack bent down and looked through the keyhole. It was an old-fashioned large keyhole, so he could see into the room clearly. Mr. Stone was sitting at his desk. He was not writing a report. He was not on the phone. He had one of his black leather shoes in his hand. He was using a silver letter opener to scrape thick, wet mud off the sole of the shoe. He looked very focused. He scraped the mud into the wastebasket. Jack frowned. Why was this strange? They all walked to the shed, so everyone had muddy shoes. Then, Jack remembered something important. When they went to the shed together, Mr. Stone wore large green rubber boots. Jack saw him put them on in the kitchen. He left his black dress shoes near the back door. So, why were his dress shoes muddy now? Jack's eyes went wide. The only explanation was that Mr. Stone went outside before the group trip. He went outside while wearing his suit. He went outside during the blackout. Jack watched Mr. Stone. The manager finished cleaning the shoe. He took a white cloth and polished the leather until it shone. He looked at the shoe critically. Then he put it back on his foot. He looked relieved. He thought he had destroyed the evidence. Jack stood up slowly. His heart was beating fast. Mr. Stone was lying. He was not in the dining room the whole time. He went out into the storm. Did he meet someone? Did he hide the necklace? Jack needed to know more. He needed to see inside that office properly. He needed to see what else Mr. Stone was hiding. Mr. Stone stood up and walked to a bookshelf on the far wall. Jack pulled his eye away from the keyhole quickly. He stepped back into the shadows of the lobby just as the doorknob turned. Mr. Stone opened the office door and stepped into the lobby. Jack pressed himself flat against the wall in the dark corner. Mr. Stone did not see him. The manager looked at the guests by the fire. "I'm going to check the generator one more time," Mr. Stone announced loudly. "I want to make sure the lights stay on." "Hurry back," Mrs. Green said sleepily. "I don't like being alone." Mr. Stone nodded and walked toward the basement stairs. His footsteps faded away. Jack knew this was his chance. He waited 3 seconds. Then he moved. He walked quickly across the red carpet and slipped inside the office. He closed the door silently behind him. The office was quiet. A small green lamp on the desk provided the only light. The room smelled of old paper, cigar smoke, and furniture polish. Jack moved immediately to the wastebasket. He needed to be sure. He shone his flashlight into the bin. Inside, on top of some crumpled white paper, were clumps of wet, dark mud. "I was right," Jack whispered. He was outside in his dress shoes. Jack stood up and looked at the desk. It was a large, heavy mahogany desk. It looked organized, but there was a stack of papers in the center. Mr. Stone was working on them before he started cleaning his shoes. Jack walked around the desk. He felt like a criminal. If Mr. Stone came back now, Jack would lose his job. Or worse. He looked at the papers. The top paper was a letter from a bank. It was stamped with big red letters, "Final Notice." Jack picked it up. His hands shook a little. He read the simple text. "Dear Mr. Stone, the Grand Hotel has missed 3 mortgage payments. You owe the bank $2 million. If you do not pay by the end of this month, the bank will take the hotel. You will lose everything." Jack put the paper down. He picked up another one. It was a bill for electricity, unpaid. A bill for food supplies, unpaid. The hotel is bankrupt. Jack thought, Mr. Stone has no money. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. Mr. Stone was the manager. He loved this hotel. It was his life. But he was losing it. He needed money fast. He needed a lot of money. And then, Mrs. Green arrived with a necklace worth $5 million. Jack looked at the desk calendar. Today's date was circled in red ink. Written inside the circle was one word: deadline. Jack felt cold. Mr. Stone was not just a worried manager. He was a desperate man. He needed that diamond to save his hotel. Jack heard a floorboard creak outside the door. Someone was coming back. Jack held his breath. He turned off his flashlight instantly. The room plunged into darkness. He stood perfectly still behind the heavy velvet curtains of the window. The footsteps in the lobby came closer. They stopped right outside the office door. Jack squeezed the flashlight in his hand. If Mr. Stone entered now, Jack was in big trouble. But the door did not open. After a terrifying 5 seconds, the footsteps started again. They moved away towards the kitchen. It sounded like Marco, the heavy chef. Jack let out a long breath. He was safe for now. He turned the flashlight back on and returned to the desk. He needed to find more proof. The bank letter showed why Mr. Stone needed money, but it did not prove he stole the necklace. Jack looked under the stack of bills. He found a small, black notebook. He opened it. The pages were filled with Mr. Stone's neat handwriting. On the last page, there was a list of numbers. Bank debt, $2 million. Suppliers, $50,000. Staff wages, $10,000. Underneath the debts, there was a calculation circled in red ink. Sale of P-Star, $4,500,000, estimate. Profit, $2,440,000. Jack stared at the page. P star. That stood for Polar Star, Mrs. Green's necklace. Mr. Stone had already calculated how much money he would get for selling the stolen diamonds. He planned this. He knew about the necklace before Mrs. Green arrived. Jack turned the page. He saw a drawing. It was a sketch of the office room they were standing in. The drawing showed the desk, the bookshelves, and the fireplace. On the east wall, Mr. Stone had drawn a square behind a picture frame. Next to the square, he wrote, "Safe combination, 4 to 8, 15 to 16. Jack looked up at the east wall. There was only one thing hanging there. It was a large, dark oil painting of a ship sailing through a storm. It had a thick gold frame. Jack understood immediately. The hotel was old. Many old hotels had hidden safes for money and documents. Mr. Stone used this secret safe. Jack looked at the paper again. He memorized the numbers. 4, 8, 15, 16. The necklace is in there. Jack whispered. He took it during the blackout, ran outside to clean his shoes, then came here to hide it in the safe. It was a perfect plan. No one would look behind a painting in the manager's office. Jack put the notebook back exactly where he found it. He put the bank letter back too. The desk looked tidy again. He walked quietly to the painting on the wall. He needed to see if the safe was real. Jack stood before the large oil painting of the ship in the storm. The painting was heavy. He carefully lifted the bottom edge and pulled it away from the wall. The hinges squeaked softly. Jack stopped and listened. The lobby outside was still quiet. He swung the painting open like a door. Behind it, set deep into the stone wall, was a grey metal safe. It had a digital keypad with numbers from 0 to 9. It looked very modern compared to the old office. Jack's heart beat fast. He looked at the keypad. He remembered the numbers from the notebook. 4, 8, 15, 16. He pressed the buttons slowly. He waited. For a second. Nothing happened. Then, a small green light flashed on the safe door. The heavy metal bolt unlocked. Jack pulled the handle. The door swung open silently. Jack shone his flashlight inside. He expected to see the sparkle of the Polar Star diamond. He was ready to be a hero. He wanted to run into the lobby and say, "I found it." But the safe was almost empty. There was no diamond necklace. There was no pile of cash. There was only one small object sitting on the metal shelf. Jack picked it up. It was a brass key with a green plastic tag. On the tag, written in black ink, were the words, "Garden Shed." Jack stared at the key. This was the missing key from the hook in the office. So, Jack whispered to himself. Mr. Stone did take the key. This proved that Mr. Stone was lying. He took the shed key before the dinner. He planned to use the shed. But why was the necklace not here? Jack thought fast. Mr. Stone stole the necklace in the dark. He ran outside. He went to the shed. Jack found the footprints. He probably left the wet raincoat in the shed. But where did he put the necklace? Maybe he did not have time to put it in the safe yet. Or maybe he moved it to a safer place because he knew the police would check the safe first. He is smart. Jack thought. He knows the safe is the first place people look. Jack put the shed key in his own pocket. He was about to close the safe door when he heard a sound that made his blood freeze. It was the sound of the main lobby door opening. Then, heavy footsteps on the red carpet. "Jack!" Mr. Stone's voice called out from the lobby. "Are you in the kitchen?" The footsteps were coming toward the office. Mr. Stone was coming back. Jack panicked. The safe was open. The painting was moved. If Mr. Stone saw this, He would know Jack knew his secret. Mr. Stone was a desperate man. He might become violent. Jack quickly pushed the safe door shut. He tried to lock it, but he needed a code to lock it again. He pressed a button. Beep. The lock clicked shut. He swung the heavy painting back against the wall. It was slightly crooked. He fixed it with 1 second to spare. The footsteps were right outside the door. The door handle turned slowly. Jack did not have time to think. He could not run to the door because Mr. Stone was standing there. He could not jump out the window because it was locked and the storm was outside. There was only one place to go. Jack dropped to his hands and knees. He crawled quickly into the dark space under the large mahogany desk. It was a tight squeeze. His back brushed against the bottom of the drawer. He pulled his legs in and curled into a small ball. He pressed his hand over his mouth to stop the sound of his heavy breathing. The office door opened fully. Mr. Stone stepped into the room. He did not turn on the main light. He used his flashlight. The beam of light swept across the room. It hit the bookshelves, the chairs, and the painting of the ship. Jack watched from the darkness under the desk. He could only see the floor. He saw Mr. Stone's black leather shoes. They were shiny and polished now. But Jack knew the truth about the mud. The shoes walked across the carpet. They stopped right in front of the desk. Jack closed his eyes tight. If Mr. Stone sat down, his legs would hit Jack. If he looked down, he would see Jack. Jack's heart hammered against his ribs like a drum. It felt so loud that he was sure Mr. Stone could hear it. Mr. Stone did not sit down. He walked past the desk to the wall. Jack heard the sound of the painting hinges. Mr. Stone was checking the safe. Good. Mr. Stone whispered to himself. His voice was very close. It is still locked. He did not know that Jack had opened it just 30 seconds ago. He did not know that the shed key was now in Jack's pocket. Mr. Stone closed the painting. He walked back to the desk. He placed his hands on the wooden surface above Jack's head. Jack could hear the wood creak under the weight. "Where are you?" Mr. Stone muttered. He sounded angry and stressed. "I need to move it." "Move what?" "The necklace." Jack realized Mr. Stone was talking to himself. The man was cracking under the pressure. The bank debts, the storm, the police. It was too much for him. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the lobby. "Manager Stone." It was Mrs. Green's voice. She was shouting. "Where are you? The fire is going out." Mr. Stone sighed loud and long. He took his hands off the desk. "I am coming, madam," he shouted back. He turned around. The black shoes walked quickly to the door. Mr. Stone stepped out and closed the door with a click. Jack was alone again. He let out a long, shaky breath. He was safe, but he was trapped. He could not stay under the desk forever. He needed to get out of the office and tell someone, maybe Marco, what he knew. Jack waited under the desk for 2 minutes. He listened to the silence. He was just about to crawl out when the door handle turned again. Jack froze. He pulled his legs back into the small dark space. Mr. Stone was back. The manager walked into the room quickly. He did not look calm anymore. He was pacing back and forth on the carpet. He sounded like a caged animal. Mr. Stone stopped at the desk. He slammed his hand down on the wood, right above Jack's head. Jack flinched but made no sound. Mr. Stone picked up the telephone receiver. He punched some numbers aggressively. He held the phone to his ear. "Come on." Mr. Stone hissed. "Work. Just work for 1 minute." There was silence in the room. Jack could hear the faint sound of the phone hook as Mr. Stone pressed it repeatedly. "Useless," Mr. Stone shouted. He slammed the phone down. Then, He started to talk to himself. His voice was low and shaky. $2 million. Mr. Stone whispered. I need that money. If I don't pay them by Monday, I lose the hotel. I lose everything. My father built this place. I cannot let them take it. Jack listened carefully. This was the confession. Mr. Stone did not steal the necklace because he was greedy. He stole it because he was desperate to save his family's legacy. It was a sad reason, but it was still a crime. The girl. Mr. Stone muttered. Sarah saw me near the table. Does she know? She looked at me. He paused. And the boy, Jack. He is too curious. He found the footprints. I need to stop him. I need to make sure he doesn't find the basement entrance. Jack's eyes went wide in the dark. Basement entrance. Everyone knew about the basement stairs from the kitchen, but Mr. Stone was talking about a different entrance. A secret entrance. I will move it tonight, Mr. Stone said to the empty room. Once they are asleep, I will take the necklace from the vent and put it in the boat. Then, when the storm clears, I will say it was lost in the sea. From the vent. Jack memorized the words. The necklace was not in the safe. It was in a vent. Manager. It was Mrs. Green calling again. Are you deaf? I want more wood for the fire. I am coming. Mr. Stone yelled. He sounded furious. That old witch. She doesn't know she is saving me. Mr. Stone straightened his jacket. He took a deep breath to calm down. He walked out of the office and closed the door. Jack waited 10 seconds. Then he crawled out. His legs were stiff. He stood up and rubbed his knees. He had the information he needed. Mr. Stone stole the necklace to pay the bank. The necklace is hidden in a vent. There is a secret basement entrance. Jack needed to tell someone he could trust. He could not tell Mrs. Green. She would just scream. He could not tell Mr. Cruz. He had to tell Marco or Sarah. Jack stood at the office door. His hand hovered over the brass handle. He could hear voices in the lobby. Mr. Stone was apologizing to Mrs. Green about the temperature. I am doing my best, madam, Mr. Stone said. His voice sounded tired and strained. Jack opened the door just a tiny crack. He peeked out. Mr. Stone was kneeling by the fireplace, putting a large log onto the flames. His back was turned to the office. Mrs. Green was watching the fire. Mr. Cruz was asleep in his chair, snoring softly. This was the moment. Jack slipped out of the office. He stayed low and moved quickly into the deep shadows of the hallway that led to the kitchen. He walked on his toes. He did not breathe until he was behind the heavy swinging doors of the kitchen. He pushed one door open and stepped inside. The kitchen was bright and warm. It felt like a different world compared to the dark, tense lobby. The smell of vegetable soup was strong and comforting. Chef Marco sat on a stool near the stove. He was stirring a pot slowly. He looked up when Jack entered. Jack, Marco said. He put down his spoon. You look terrible. Your face is white like a sheet. Did you see a ghost? Jack walked to the sink and drank a glass of water in one gulp. He wiped his mouth. Worse than a ghost, Marco. I saw the truth. Marco frowned. He stood up. He was a big man, and he looked very strong in his white uniform. What do you mean? Jack moved closer. He lowered his voice, even though they were alone. It is Mr. Stone. He took the necklace. Marco laughed. It was a nervous laugh. Don't be crazy, Jack. Mr. Stone is the manager. He calls the police. He doesn't steal from guests. He has to. Jack said urgently. I was in his office. I hid under his desk. I heard him talking to himself. The hotel is bankrupt, Marco. The bank is going to take it away on Monday. He owes $2 million. Marco's smile disappeared. He looked at the floor. I knew business was bad. He whispered. He hasn't paid the suppliers for weeks. And my salary is late. He stole the necklace to sell it. Jack continued. He plans to blame it on the storm, or on me. He planted the button in the shed to make me look guilty. Marco's face turned red with anger. He tried to frame you. That is not right. We work hard for him. We have to stop him. Jack said. But we have to be careful. He is desperate. If he knows I know, he might hurt me. So, what do we do? Marco asked. He picked up his heavy rolling pin again. Do we tie him up? No. Jack said. We need the necklace. If we find the necklace, we have proof. Then we can tell Mrs. Green and lock him in his office. Do you know where it is? Jack nodded. He said he hid it in a vent. But I don't know which one. There are air vents everywhere in this hotel. Marco looked up at the ceiling. There was a metal grate near the stove. A vent. Marco repeated. That is a good hiding place. A vent. Marco repeated. He looked around the large kitchen. He pointed to the shiny metal extractor fan above the stove. There is a vent here. There are vents in the guest rooms. There are vents in the lobby. The hotel is full of them. It is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Think, Marco. Jack said intensely. He said he was worried I would find the basement entrance. We already know where the main stairs are. Why would he worry about that? Marco scratched his chin. His eyes narrowed as he thought. The basement entrance. He muttered. Maybe he means the old boiler room. What is that? Jack asked. It is a part of the basement we do not use anymore. Marco explained. Before we had electricity, the hotel used coal for heat. There is an old room behind the wine cellar. It has big iron vents that go up to the roof, but the door is always locked. Jack felt a spark of excitement. Locked. Does Mr. Stone have the key? Mr. Stone has keys to everything. Marco said. And nobody goes there. It is dirty and full of spiders. It is a perfect hiding place. Jack grabbed Marco's arm. We have to go there. Now. While he is busy with Mrs. Green. Marco hesitated. He looked at the kitchen door. If he catches us, he will fire me. I have worked here for 10 years. If we don't catch him, there will be no hotel in 2 days. Jack reminded him. The bank will take it. You will lose your job anyway. Marco looked at his soup. He looked at the rolling pin in his hand. Then he looked at Jack. He nodded slowly. Okay. Marco said. You are right. We must save the hotel. And I don't like thieves. Good. Jack said. Do you know how to get into the old boiler room? I don't have a key. Marco said. But the walls are old brick. And I have tools. He opened a drawer and pulled out a large, heavy screwdriver and a hammer. Wait. Jack said. We need a lookout. Someone needs to tell us if Mr. Stone comes downstairs. Just then, the kitchen door opened softly. Jack jumped and hid behind Marco. It was Sarah. She looked pale and nervous. Mr. Stone is coming back to the kitchen soon. She whispered. He wants hot milk for Mrs. Green. Sarah. Jack said, stepping out. We know who the thief is. It is Mr. Stone. Sarah's mouth fell open. The manager. Are you sure? Yes. Jack said. We are going to the basement to find the necklace. Can you stay here? Can you make a loud noise if he comes down? Sarah nodded bravely. I will drop a stack of plates. She promised. It will be very loud. Perfect. Jack said. He turned to Marco. Let's go. Marco grabbed a lantern. Follow me. The chef said. We are going into the dark. Jack and Marco left Sarah in the kitchen. She stood near the shelf of china plates, ready to push them over if Mr. Stone appeared. Her hands were shaking, but she gave Jack a small, brave smile. Be fast. She whispered. Marco led the way. He carried a heavy battery-powered lantern in one hand and his tools in the other. They walked down the same concrete stairs they used earlier to visit the laundry room. But this time, they did not stop at the laundry door. They went deeper. The stairs continued down into the darkness. The air became colder and smelled of wet earth and rust. Jack zipped up his jacket. Where are we going? Jack whispered. The silence in the basement was heavy. To the wine cellar. Marco said. The entrance to the old boiler room is behind the wine racks. It is a secret door. They reached the bottom of the stairs. A heavy wooden door with a sign $cave / grave, a / stood in front of them. It was unlocked. Marco pushed it open. The wine cellar was a maze of tall wooden shelves filled with dusty bottles. It looked like a library, but for wine. Shadows from the lantern moved across the bottles like long fingers. Marco walked to the back wall. There was a huge, heavy shelf filled with red wine bottles. Help me. Marco grunted. We need to move this. Jack put his shoulder against the wood. 1, 2, 3, push. They pushed hard. The heavy shelf scraped across the stone floor. It moved slowly. Behind it, there was a small, low door made of black iron. It looked like the door to a dungeon. Nobody has opened this for 20 years. Marco said. He wiped dust from his face. Mr. Stone told me never to touch it. He said it was dangerous. Because he hides his secrets there. Jack said. Jack shone his flashlight on the iron door. There was no keyhole. There was only a large, rusty bolt. It is rusted shut. Jack said. He pulled the bolt. It did not move. We cannot open it. Marco stepped forward. He raised his hammer. Metal is strong. Marco said. But I am stronger. Wait. Jack said. If you hit it, the noise will travel through the pipes. Mr. Stone will hear it upstairs. Marco lowered the hammer. You are right. The pipes go to every room. Jack looked at the hinges of the door. They were old and covered in red rust. He looked at the screwdriver in Marco's pocket. Give me the screwdriver and the oil. Jack said. He remembered seeing a can of oil on the shelf. Marco handed him the tool. Jack poured oil over the rusty hinges. He waited a moment. Then he used the screwdriver to pry the pins out of the hinges. It was slow work. He twisted and pulled. One pin came out. Then the second one. Catch the door. Jack whispered. The heavy iron door fell forward, off its hinges. Marco caught it with his strong arms before it hit the floor. He lowered it gently. Now, a dark, black hole stared at them. The old boiler room was open. Jack stepped through the open iron door first. The air inside the old boiler room was thick and heavy. It tasted of metallic dust and ancient coal. It was much colder here than in the wine cellar. Marco followed him, holding the lantern high. The yellow light pushed back the darkness, revealing a terrifying scene. The room was dominated by a giant, black iron machine in the center. It was the old coal boiler, long dead and cold. It had many rusty pipes coming out of it like the arms of a giant octopus. The pipes went up to the ceiling and disappeared into the shadows. "It looks like a monster," Jack whispered. "It was the heart of the hotel," Marco said quietly. "Now it is just a ghost." Water dripped from the ceiling. The sound echoed in the large, empty space. In the corners, Jack saw old tools, broken chairs, and piles of coal dust. "Mr. Stone said the necklace is in a vent," Jack said. He looked at the walls. "There are vents everywhere." He was right. Large metal tunnels, ducts, ran along the walls. They carried air to the rooms upstairs. Some were small, and some were big enough for a person to crawl inside. "We need to find the main vent," Marco said. "The one that connects to the office or the lobby." They walked carefully across the uneven floor. Jack tripped on a piece of metal but caught himself. He shone his flashlight on the far wall. There, he saw a large grey box with many wires coming out of it. It was the old electricity control panel. Next to the box, there was a square metal grate low on the wall. It was covered in grime, but the screws looked shiny. "Look," Jack said, pointing his light. "Those screws are clean. Someone touched them recently." Marco moved closer. He touched the screw with his finger. "No dust," he agreed. "And look at the floor." In front of the grate, the thick layer of dust on the floor was disturbed. There were no clear footprints like in the mud outside, but there were drag marks. It looked like someone knelt there. "This is it," Jack said. His heart began to race. "The vent leads up. Mr. Stone must have hidden it inside. We need to open it," Marco said. He raised his screwdriver. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the pipes above their heads. Jack jumped. "What was that?" "It is just the plumbing," Marco said, but he looked nervous. "Old pipes make noise when the temperature changes. Or someone is coming," Jack said. "We have to be fast." Marco knelt down. He fit the screwdriver into the first screw. He turned it hard. It was tight, but it moved. 1. Marco counted. He moved to the second screw. Jack held the lantern steady, but his eyes watched the open iron door behind them. The darkness of the wine cellar seemed to be watching them back. He had a bad feeling. He felt exposed. "Hurry, Marco," Jack whispered. "I am trying." Marco grunted. "This one is stuck." Jack looked back at the vent. If the necklace was in there, they had the proof. They could save the hotel. But if they were wrong? "Got it," Marco said. The second screw fell to the floor. He pulled the metal grate away from the wall. A dark, square hole was revealed. A rush of cold air hit their faces. Jack shone his flashlight into the open hole in the wall. The beam of light disappeared into the darkness. It was not just a small air vent. It was a large, square tunnel made of brick and metal. It went deep into the wall. "What do you see?" Marco whispered. He was holding the heavy iron grate. "It is a service tunnel," Jack said. His voice echoed slightly inside the hole. "It is big enough for a person to crawl." Jack moved the light around. The floor of the tunnel was covered in thick grey dust. But down the center, the dust was wiped away. There was a clear path. Someone had crawled in here. And they had crawled in here recently. The drag marks continue inside. Jack said. "He went in there." "Is the necklace there?" Marco asked. "I cannot see the end." Jack said. "The tunnel turns left." I have to go inside. Marco looked worried. Jack, be careful. We don't know what is in there. Maybe rats. Maybe holes in the floor. I have to look. Jack said. Hold the lantern. If you hear Mr. Stone, pull my leg. Jack took a deep breath. The air coming from the tunnel smelled of old soot and damp stone. He put his head inside. Then his shoulders. It was a tight squeeze. The cold bricks pressed against his arms. He crawled forward on his stomach. The dust made him want to sneeze. But he held it in. He crawled 2 meters, then 3. The darkness felt heavy. He was surrounded by the hotel. He felt like he was in the stomach of a stone beast. He reached the corner where the tunnel turned left. He moved his flashlight slowly around the bend. He expected to see a dead end. He expected to see a box. But he saw something else. The tunnel opened up into a small, vertical shaft. There were rusty metal rungs, like a ladder, going down into a deeper part of the foundation. Dark stairs. Jack whispered. It was a hidden way to move between the floors, or deeper into the earth. He looked down the shaft. It was pitch black, but about 1 meter down, on a small ledge of brick, he saw something. It was not the necklace. It was a loose brick. It stuck out from the wall, different from the others, and caught on the rough corner of the brick was a small piece of blue velvet thread. Jack recognized the color. It was the same dark blue as Mrs. Green's dress. He was here. Jack thought. And he snagged the necklace on this brick. Jack reached his hand out. He stretched his arm as far as he could. His fingers brushed against the loose brick. It moved. It was not cemented in. It was a hiding spot. Marco. Jack called out, his voice muffled by the tunnel. I found something. Jack lay on his stomach in the narrow, dark tunnel. His arm was stretched out over the black hole of the shaft. His fingers touched the rough, red clay of the loose brick. It was heavy. Jack tried to pull it, but it was stuck. He gritted his teeth. He pushed his toes into the floor of the tunnel to get more power. He pulled again. The brick moved a little. A shower of dust fell down the dark shaft. Jack coughed, but he did not stop. He knew the necklace was behind this brick. It was the only place. Jack. Marco's voice echoed from behind him. Are you okay? Almost. Jack grunted. He used both hands now. He wiggled the brick left and right. Finally, with a heavy scrape, the brick slid out of the wall. Jack held it tight so it did not fall down the deep hole. He set the heavy brick down in the tunnel next to him. Now, there was a square, dark hole in the wall of the shaft. It was a secret hiding place. Jack picked up his flashlight again. He shone the beam into the small hole. At first, he saw only darkness and spiderwebs. But then, the light hit something at the back of the hole. It was something wrapped in a dirty grey rag. It did not look like a treasure. It looked like trash. Jack reached his hand into the hole. The air inside was freezing cold. His fingers touched the grey rag. It felt soft but heavy. There was something hard inside it. He grabbed the bundle and pulled it out. I got it. Jack shouted. His voice was loud in the small space. He started to crawl backward. It was difficult to move backward in the tight tunnel. He had to push with his hands and pull with his legs. He held the grey bundle tightly in his teeth so he could use his hands. He crawled back around the corner. He saw the light of Marco's lantern. It looked like a star in the darkness. Pull me out, Jack said. Marco grabbed Jack's ankles and pulled him. Jack slid out of the tunnel and landed on the dusty floor of the old boiler room. He sat up and took the bundle from his mouth. He was covered in grey dust. He looked like a ghost. Is that it? Marco asked. His eyes were wide. He put the lantern on the floor so they could both see. Jack placed the dirty rag on the floor. His hands were shaking with excitement. "This is it," Jack said. "Mr. Stone's secret." He slowly unfolded the grey cloth. Inside, there was another layer of tissue paper. And inside the paper, Jack pulled back the final layer of white tissue paper. Suddenly, the dark, dirty basement was filled with light. It was as if Jack held a star in his hands. The large central diamond of the polar star necklace caught the beam of the lantern and threw rainbows of color against the old brick walls. Blue, white, and silver lights danced on the ceiling. It was the necklace. It was real, and it was here. Marco gasped. He leaned closer, his eyes wide. "Mama MIA." He whispered. "It is beautiful. I have never seen anything like this." Jack picked up the necklace. It was heavy and cold. The metal was smooth. It looked perfect, untouched by the dirt and dust of the tunnel. It was hard to believe that this small object was worth $5 million. It was hard to believe that people would lie and steal for it. "We found it," Jack said. He felt a huge wave of relief. "We really found it. Mr. Stone is finished," Marco said. He looked at the necklace with a mix of fear and respect. "With this, we can prove everything. We can call the police when the phones work, and we can show Mrs. Green." Jack carefully wrapped the necklace back in the tissue paper, and then in the grey rag. He did not want to scratch it. He put the bundle into the deep inside pocket of his jacket. He buttoned the pocket shut. "It is safe," Jack said. "Now, we have to go back to the kitchen. Sarah is waiting." Marco stood up. He picked up his tools and the lantern. "I feel better now," Marco said. "I feel like a hero." Jack smiled. He felt like a hero too. He was just a waiter, but he solved the mystery. He found the clues, followed the footprints, and found the treasure. They turned toward the open iron door. The darkness of the wine cellar waited for them. "Let's go quietly," Jack whispered. "We don't want to wake the beast." They walked out of the old boiler room. Marco pushed the heavy iron door back into place. It did not fit perfectly because the hinges were broken, but it looked closed. They pushed the heavy wine shelf back in front of it. Now, the secret room was hidden again. They walked through the aisles of wine bottles. They were relaxed now. They walked a little faster, eager to get upstairs. But as they reached the wooden door at the bottom of the stairs, Jack stopped. He held up his hand. "Wait," Jack said softly. "What is it?" Marco asked. "I heard something," Jack said. "On the stairs." They listened. Someone was walking down the concrete steps. The footsteps were slow and heavy. They were coming closer. Jack and Marco stood frozen in the middle of the wine cellar. The footsteps stopped just outside the wooden door. The handle began to turn slowly. The rusty hinges made a long, high-pitched noise that sounded like a scream in the quiet room. The door swung open. A bright beam of light cut through the darkness, blinding Jack and Marco. They raised their hands to cover their eyes. Behind the light, a tall, dark figure stood in the doorway. "I knew it," a voice said. It was deep and cold. Mr. Stone lowered the flashlight. His face was illuminated by the glow of Marco's lantern. He did not look like the perfect, polite manager anymore. His grey hair was messy. His tie was loose. His eyes were wide and red, looking wild and dangerous. In his right hand, he held a heavy metal wrench. He looked at Jack, covered in grey dust. He looked at Marco, holding the screwdriver. Then, he looked at the heavy wine shelf that was pushed away from the wall. He saw the dark, open hole of the secret room. Mr. Stone laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "You are very clever," Mr. Stone said. He stepped into the room and kicked the door shut behind him. "I thought you were just a stupid waiter and a cook. But you are better detectives than the police. We know everything," Jack said. His voice shook, but he stood tall. "We know about the bank. We know about the debts. And we have the necklace." Jack patted his chest pocket. Mr. Stone's eyes followed Jack's hand. He took a step forward. He slapped the heavy wrench into his open palm. The sound was sharp and threatening. "Give it to me," Mr. Stone commanded. "It is the only way to save the hotel. Do you want everyone to lose their jobs? Do you want this place to close? Stealing is not the answer," Marco said firmly. He stepped in front of Jack. He held his lantern like a shield. "Mrs. Green trusts you." "Mrs. Green is a fool," Mr. Stone shouted. His voice echoed off the stone walls. "She has too much money. She will not miss one necklace. But I need it. My father built this hotel. I will not let the bank take it." He looked desperate. Sweat ran down his face. "Give me the necklace, Jack. I will give you money. I will give you $10,000. Just give it to me and forget you saw anything." "No," Jack said. "I cannot be bought." Mr. Stone's face twisted with anger. He raised the heavy wrench. "Then I will take it from you." "Marco, look out!" Jack yelled. Mr. Stone lunged forward. He was fast. He swung the wrench at Marco. Marco dodged to the left, but he dropped the lantern. The lantern hit the floor and rolled away, casting spinning shadows on the walls. "Run, Jack!" Marco shouted. "Run!" The wine cellar was chaos. The single lantern on the floor spun around, making the shadows of the bottles look like monsters dancing on the walls. Mr. Stone stepped forward again. He raised the heavy iron wrench high above his head. He looked at Marco. "Get out of my way, chef," he growled. Marco did not move. He was a big man, and he was brave. He looked at the heavy wooden shelf filled with red wine bottles next to him. "Run, Jack!" Marco shouted. Marco put his large hands on the shelf and pushed with all his strength. The shelf tipped over. It fell toward Mr. Stone with a terrible crash. Hundreds of glass bottles smashed on the stone floor. Red wine exploded everywhere. It splashed on the walls and looked like blood in the dim light. The smell of alcohol filled the room instantly. Mr. Stone shouted in surprise. He jumped back to avoid the falling glass, but the heavy would hit his leg. He fell to his knees in the puddle of wine and broken glass. "Now!" Marco yelled. He grabbed Jack's arm. They ran past Mr. Stone, who was struggling to stand up in the slippery liquid. They ran out of the wine cellar door and slammed it shut. Marco tried to hold the handle, but there was no lock on this side. "We cannot hold him," Marco said. "We must get to the lobby." They ran to the concrete stairs. Jack's lungs burned. His legs felt heavy, but fear made him fast. He touched his chest pocket. The necklace was still there. They climbed the stairs two at a time. Behind them, they heard the cellar door bang open against the wall. "Come back here!" Mr. Stone screamed from the bottom of the stairs. His voice was filled with rage. Jack heard Mr. Stone's heavy boots running up the steps. He was fast. He was very angry. They reached the top of the stairs. They were back in the service hallway near the laundry room. "To the kitchen," Jack said. "Sarah is there." They burst into the kitchen. Sarah was standing near the sink. When she saw them, Jack covered in dust and Marco breathing hard, She dropped a plate. It shattered on the floor. "Did you find it?" she asked. "Yes." "Run!" Jack shouted. He did not stop. They ran through the kitchen. Jack pushed the swinging doors open. They flew into the main hallway. They needed to reach the guests. They needed witnesses. If Mr. Stone caught them alone in the dark, nobody would know the truth. They ran toward the dining room doors. But suddenly, Mr. Stone appeared from the side door of the office. He knew a shortcut. He stood in front of the dining room doors. He blocked their path. He was wet with red wine, his suit was ruined, and he held the wrench tightly. He looked terrifying. End of the line. Mr. Stone panted. "Give it to me." Mr. Stone stood in the center of the hallway. He looked like a madman. His suit was stained red with wine, his hair was wild, and he held the heavy iron wrench like a weapon. He blocked the path to the lobby where the guests were sleeping. "Give me the necklace." Mr. Stone growled. He took a step forward. "I will not ask again." Jack looked at Marco. They were trapped. Behind them was the kitchen. In front of them was Mr. Stone. "We cannot fight him." Jack whispered. "He is dangerous. We need to go around him." Marco whispered back. "To the dining room." To their right, there was a set of double doors. They led into the large dining room. It was dark inside, but it had another door that connected to the lobby. It was a longer way, but it was their only chance. "Now!" Marco shouted. Marco grabbed a heavy ceramic vase from a side table in the hallway. He threw it at Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone ducked. The vase hit the wall and shattered. In that second of distraction, Jack and Marco ran. They pushed open the dining room doors and sprinted inside. The dining room was pitch black. The candles had burned out hours ago. The storm was still raging outside, flashing lightning through the big glass windows. "Keep moving!" Jack yelled. He tried to navigate through the dark room. He bumped into a chair. He knocked over a table. "I can hear you!" Mr. Stone shouted from the doorway. He turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, searching for them. "You cannot hide from me in my own hotel." Jack saw the door to the lobby on the other side of the room. It was 20 meters away. "Run for the door," Jack told Marco. They ran. Mr. Stone chased them. He was fast. He vaulted over a table. He was closing the distance. Just as Jack reached the lobby door, Mr. Stone threw the wrench. It flew through the air. It missed Jack's head by inches. It hit the wooden door frame with a loud thud and fell to the floor. Jack grabbed the handle of the lobby door and threw it open. He fell into the lobby, landing on the red carpet. Marco fell next to him. The noise was tremendous. Mrs. Green woke up in her armchair. She screamed. "What is happening? Are we under attack?" Mr. Cruz jumped up, looking confused and sleepy. "Who is screaming?" Jack scrambled to his feet. He pointed back at the dining room door. Mr. Stone stood there. He was breathing hard. He looked at the guests, then at Jack. "He has it!" Jack shouted, pointing a shaking finger at the manager. "Mr. Stone is the thief. He stole the necklace." Mrs. Green stood up. She looked at Mr. Stone's red-stained clothes. "Manager, why are you covered in blood?" "It is wine," Marco shouted, standing up. "He tried to hit us. He is crazy." Mr. Stone tried to smile, but it looked terrifying. "Do not listen to them," he panted. "They are lying. They attacked me." Jack has the necklace in his pocket. He was trying to escape. Mrs. Green looked at Jack. Then she looked at Mr. Stone. She did not know who to believe. Mr. Stone walked slowly into the center of the lobby. He wiped the red wine from his face with his sleeve. He looked at Mrs. Green. "Madam," Mr. Stone said, his voice smooth but shaking. "Jack is the thief. I caught him in the basement. He was trying to leave the hotel with your diamonds. Please, tell him to give it to me." Mrs. Green looked at Jack. Her eyes were suspicious. "Is this true, boy? Do you have my necklace?" Jack stood tall. He put his hand into his pocket. Mr. Stone's eyes watched him hungrily. "I have it," Jack said. He pulled out the dirty grey rag. "But I did not steal it. I found it where Mr. Stone hid it." Jack unfolded the cloth. The Polar Star diamond sparkled in the firelight. "It was safe," Mrs. Green gasped. She ran forward and grabbed the necklace from Jack's hands. She held it to her chest and kissed it. "My baby," she cried. "You are safe." "He is lying," Mr. Stone shouted. He pointed at Jack. "He stole it." "No," Jack said firmly. "Ask him about the bank, Mrs. Green. Ask him about the $2 million he owes. Ask him about the final notice on his desk." Mr. Stone's face went white. He knew his secret was out. He looked around the room. He saw the angry faces of Marco, Sarah, and now Mrs. Green. He realized his lies were not working. Suddenly, Mr. Stone's face changed. He stopped pretending to be nice. He snarled like a wild dog. "It is mine!" Mr. Stone screamed. "I need it. The hotel is mine." He lunged at Mrs. Green. He tried to grab the necklace from her hands. "No!" Jack shouted. But Marco was faster. The big chef ran forward like a bull. He hit Mr. Stone with his shoulder. Mr. Stone flew backward and fell onto the carpet. But he was strong. He tried to stand up again. He reached for the heavy fire poker near the fireplace. "Help him!" Jack yelled to Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, who was usually afraid, saw his chance to be brave. He jumped on Mr. Stone's back. "Stay down!" Mr. Cruz shouted. Jack ran to the window. He pulled the thick rope that held the curtains. He ripped it down. "Here," Jack said. He threw the rope to Marco. Marco grabbed Mr. Stone's hands and pulled them behind his back. Mr. Stone kicked and screamed. But Marco was too strong. Marco tied the rope around Mr. Stone's wrists. He tied it tight. "Let me go!" Mr. Stone yelled. "You are all fired." "Fired? You cannot fire us," Marco said, breathing hard. "You are going to prison." They pushed Mr. Stone into a chair. Marco tied the rope to the chair leg. Mr. Stone struggled. But he was trapped. Mrs. Green stood up. She put the necklace around her neck. She looked at Mr. Stone with cold eyes. "You are a terrible man," she said. "You tried to steal from me. And you blamed this innocent boy." She turned to Jack. She smiled for the first time. "Thank you, Jack. You were brave." Jack sat down on the floor. He was exhausted. His legs were shaking. He looked at Marco and Sarah. They were safe. The thief was caught. The long night was almost over. The rest of the night passed very slowly. Nobody went to sleep. They were too excited and too full of adrenaline. Marco made a fresh pot of coffee, and they sat in the lobby, watching Mr. Stone. The manager did not speak anymore. He sat slumped in the chair, his hands tied behind his back. He stared at the floor. He looked like a broken man. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep sadness. He knew his life at the Grand Hotel was over. Around 5 a.m., the sound of the wind changed. It stopped whistling and roaring. It became a soft whisper. The heavy drumming of the rain on the roof slowed down. And then, silence. Jack stood up and walked to the main doors. He unlocked the heavy bolt and pulled them open. The contrast was amazing. The sky was no longer black. It was a soft, pale pink and orange. The sun was just starting to rise over the horizon. The storm clouds were gone, blown away to the north. The ocean, which was a monster of white foam and black waves last night, was now blue and calm. Gentle waves rolled against the bottom of the cliffs. The birds, the seagulls and the ravens, were singing again. "It is over," Jack said. He took a deep breath of the fresh, salty air. It smelled clean. It smelled like a new beginning. Sarah walked to the door and stood next to him. She wrapped her arms around herself. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "I thought the night would never end." "The Black Gale is finished," Marco said, joining them. He held a mug of coffee. Elias the fisherman was right. It was a crazy storm. Mrs. Green stayed in her chair, guarding her necklace, but she looked out at the light. "Finally," she said, "I can leave this terrible island." Jack looked back at the hotel lobby. In the daylight, it looked different. It looked messy. There was mud on the carpet. There was broken glass. There was a faint smell of red wine. But it also looked less scary. The shadows were gone. The ghosts were gone. It was just a building made of stone and wood. "What do we do about him?" Mr. Cruz asked, pointing at Mr. Stone. "We wait for the boats," Jack said. "Now that the storm is over, the boats will come. Captain Hook will bring the mail. Old Elias will bring the fish. And the police will come." Mr. Stone looked up. His eyes met Jack's. "Take care of the hotel," Mr. Stone whispered. It was a strange thing to say. "The roof leaks in the east wing, and the cellar needs cleaning." Jack nodded slowly. Even though Mr. Stone was a thief, he truly loved this place. "It was a tragedy. I will tell them," Jack said. They stood together in the open doorway, watching the golden sun climb higher into the sky. The warmth of the sun touched their faces. It felt like a promise that everything would be okay. An hour later, Jack saw a boat approaching from the horizon. It was moving fast, leaving a white trail of foam on the blue water. It was not a fishing boat. It was painted blue and white, and it had a flashing light on the roof. "The police!" Jack shouted to Marco. "They are coming." Jack ran down the long stone staircase to the dock. He felt light and fast. He was not afraid of the cliffs anymore. When he reached the bottom, the police boat was tying up to the wooden posts. Two officers stepped off the boat. One was a tall man with a mustache, Officer Roberts. The other was a woman, Officer Lee. They looked at Jack's dirty clothes and tired face. "Are you the one who tried to call yesterday?" Officer Roberts asked. "We saw a signal try to connect, but then it died." "Yes," Jack said. "The storm cut the lines. But we are okay. We caught the thief." "The thief?" Officer Lee asked. "We thought this was a call about a power outage." "It is a long story," Jack said. "Please, come upstairs. The thief is the hotel manager." The officers looked surprised, but they followed Jack up the stairs. When they entered the lobby, Mrs. Green stood up immediately. She pointed a dramatic finger at Mr. Stone. "Officer!" she cried. "Arrest that man. He stole my diamond necklace and terrorized us all night." Officer Roberts looked at Mr. Stone, who was still tied to the chair with the curtain rope. He looked at the red wine stains on Mr. Stone's suit. "Is this true, sir?" Officer Roberts asked. Mr. Stone did not look up. He nodded his head slowly. "Yes." He whispered, "I took it. I needed the money. The hotel is bankrupt." Officer Lee cut the ropes. She pulled Mr. Stone's hands behind his back and put on metal handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," Officer Lee said. Mr. Stone stood up. He looked very old and very tired. He looked around the lobby of his beloved hotel one last time. He looked at the chandelier, the paintings, and the fireplace. "I am sorry," he said to Marco and Sarah. "I just wanted to save it." "You almost destroyed it," Marco said sadly. The officers led Mr. Stone out of the door. Jack watched them walk down the path. It was a sad ending for the manager, but it was justice. Mrs. Green and Mr. Cruz packed their bags immediately. Captain Hook arrived 10 minutes later with $the black-bird. He agreed to take the guests back to the mainland right away. "I never want to see this island again," Mrs. Green said as she walked out the door. She did not say thank you to Jack. She just held her necklace tight and left. Mr. Cruz shook Jack's hand. "Good work, kid," he said. Then he ran to the boat. Suddenly, the hotel was quiet. The guests were gone. The manager was gone. Only Jack, Marco, and Sarah remained in the big, empty hall. 1 week later, the Grand Hotel was silent. The bank sent people to close the building. They put boards on the windows and locked the big doors. The hotel was officially closed. Jack stood on the dock with his suitcase. The sun was warm, and the ocean was calm. It was a beautiful day to leave Raven Island. Marco and Sarah stood next to him. They had their bags too. Marco was going to open a small restaurant in the city. Sarah was going back to nursing school to help her mother. They were all unemployed, but they were safe. "Well," Marco said, looking up at the high cliffs. "It was an interesting summer." Jack laughed. "It was only 3 days, Marco. But it felt like a year." Just then, $the black-bird arrived. Captain Hook steered the boat to the dock. He threw a rope to Jack. "Ready to go back to civilization?" Captain Hook asked. "Oh, wait. I have something for you." The captain reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. "This came to the harbor office this morning. It is for Mr. Jack Miller." Jack took the envelope. It looked expensive. He opened it slowly. Marco and Sarah leaned in to look. Inside, there was a letter written in elegant handwriting. "Dear Jack, I apologize for my behavior when I left. I was in shock. You were brave and honest. You saved my family treasure. Please accept this as a token of my gratitude, Mrs. Green." Behind the letter was a check. Jack looked at the number. His eyes went wide. $50,000. Jack gasped. "Wow!" Sarah cheered. "She is not so bad after all." Jack looked at the check. It was more money than he had ever seen. He could fix his apartment. He could travel. He could do anything. He looked at Marco and Sarah. They were his team. Without Marco's strength and Sarah's help, he never would have found the necklace. "We did this together," Jack said. He smiled at them. "We split it 3 ways." "No, Jack," Marco said. "It is yours." "I insist," Jack said. "Friends share everything." They hugged each other. They felt rich, not just because of the money, but because they survived the storm together. They climbed onto the boat. The engine started with a low rumble. As the boat moved away from the island, Jack sat on the bench and looked back. The Grand Hotel stood tall and dark on the cliff. It looked lonely again. The mystery of the necklace was solved. The thief was in prison. The storm was gone. Jack took a deep breath of fresh sea air. He touched the check in his pocket. He was not just a waiter anymore. He was a detective. He was an adventurer. Where do we go next? Jack asked. Marco smiled and pointed to the horizon. Anywhere we want, my friend. Anywhere we want. The boat sped up, leaving a white path in the blue water, carrying them toward the city and a bright new future.